Afternoon. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted via WebEx, an online digital platform, and will be live streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. My name is Donald Granitstein, and I will be chairing this hearing. Panel members participating via WebEx and who can be seen and heard are Lisa Valentini, Yim Chan, and Larry Clay. City staff will be assisting us throughout the meeting, including moderating the WebEx platform. Agents, applicants, and other interested parties participating in this virtual hearing registered in advance and will be connecting through WebEx using a compatible electronic device. Their participation will be via audio only. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustments of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustments considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone who wants to receive a copy of the committee's decision for an application must submit a written request by email to the general email address for the Committee of Adjustments, Toronto and East York District Office. Please include your name, address, and an email address. All Committee of Adjustments and the TLAB notifications and appeal updates will be sent by email only. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT. Appeal instructions will be set out at the bottom of the committee's decision. Participants who have registered in advance will be connected to this virtual hearing and will be muted automatically upon entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with his or her presentation if required. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter directly into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please speak slowly and clearly. State your name and address. Please confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. Where required, the applicant or agent will proceed first with the presentation of the application. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker. When all speakers are finished, the applicant agent will be unmuted and will have an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of discussion and the application will be taken into committee for a decision. Please note the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice are informed of the changes. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have the minutes? Yes. Okay, we've done that. Members or staff, do you have any interest to declare in any of the items scheduled this afternoon's list?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any requests to withdraw an application?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, we will now proceed. First item, 91 Cedar Crest Boulevard. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing one-story detached dwelling with a front integral garage by constructing a rear and side one-story addition and complete second-story addition. We have before us in this application material submitted by the applicant and a report from Urban Forestry. Gus Ironidis.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Gus Hernandez. I am the owner and applicant for the application of 91 Cedar Crest. I am requesting relief by way of 5 minor variances to the new City of Toronto bylaw 569-2013. I am proposing to construct a 2-story rear and side addition and full second floor addition. Interior renovation to an existing 1-story dwelling, which will include a new porch, deck, integral garage at grade. The minor variants requested are as follows. Reduction to the required front yard soft landscape to 67%, whereas the required is 75%. Increase of the maximum allowed coverage to 37%, whereas the maximum allowed is 35%. Increase to the maximum height for a flat roof to 8.38 meters, whereas the maximum permitted is 7.2 meters. Increase to the maximum floor space index to 0.78, where the maximum permitted is 0.6. Reduction of the side yard setbacks to 1.05 meters and 0.91 meters, whereas the minimum requirement is 2.1. This will allow for usable floor space to meet the current needs of today's modern Torontonian family. The proposal will also allow for an integral garage that will provide indoor off-street parking. The look of the dwelling will follow a modern ministerial theme, which includes the balance of materials and proportion in a very calculated, meticulous way, which is now the trend through our city. The following minor variants that I am requesting meet the 4 tests and is minor in nature. Appropriate for the neighborhood, in general conformance with the intent of zoning bylaw and official planning. Thank you for the opportunity to present my proposal today.
All right, thank you. Do any panel members have any questions? No questions? Okay. Wendy Brown, please.
Yes, I'm here.
May
Can
we
you
have,
hear me?
May we? Yes, we can hear you. Would you please proceed?
Yes, thank you. I live at 89 Cedar Crest Boulevard. So I'm the next door neighbor to 91. And I was interested to hear the state that he wants to create a modern. My issue with this plan is that I think if you take all the variances together, they don't have a result that ends up being minor, and it needs to be happening. But I've tried to understand what the rationale is for requesting these variances. I think it is, and I could be wrong, but I think it is to accommodate the integral garage. So on my street, it's very short. There are approximately 122 houses. There are no integral garages. If the houses have garages at all, they're at the end of a long driveway and they're sort of half tucked in behind the house. So the result of this is that the visual of the neighborhood, it gives you a feeling of privacy and like it's friendly, relaxed and laid back. Whereas I think if you add bulk and eliminate the long driveway, I think what you're doing is creating more of a perception of crowding along with the greater height and mass of the dwelling, what is planned. So in general, I find that it interferes with the aesthetic, and I imagine it interferes with the planning principle. Like if I was to come in to this situation and try to plan something that would fit in, I wouldn't do it that way. So that's everything I have to say.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. I'm just wondering from Ms. Brown, where's your driveway? Is it between your house and 91 or is it on the other side? I just
My
refresh my memory.
My driveway's on the other. So what'll happen with this, the house on 91, normally there would be a driveway on both sides of me. So now that's
Yes.
going to be gone. And so the setback is going to be shorter in between the houses so that there's going to be less light and spacing in between. And so like it's different. It's the only house on the street that will have this feature.
None of the
And
other infills on the street have that. I know there are other new two-story houses in the area and on the
Yes, but-
street, but not of them go over the existing driveway, is what you're saying.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Are there any other questions? Yim? No, we can't hear you. Yim?
Yeah, okay.
Yim, do you have a question?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Miss Brown, I just wanted to ask you, are there other flat roof houses on the street?
Flat roof. Honestly, I haven't noticed that. I would have to take a look. I didn't look at that.
Okay, well, you say this house doesn't fit in with the other houses in the street. Is it only because it has an integral garage as opposed to a driveway with a garage at the back?
That's the biggest difference. The second one would be the size of it. There is a house across the street that has, to some extent, reduced the width of the driveway. The car still fits on it. I don't believe a car would fit on the space in between 91 and my house. So I think this would be the closest dwelling on the whole street, or adjoining, probably, on the adjoining.
Hello?
Yes, did you hear me?
Well, I don't know
Hello?
whether you faded out or you finished. So you said something.
Oh, okay, so,
Go
sorry?
ahead.
okay, so I was saying that the two differences would be no other house has a front integral garage. Every other house has a long driveway. But the other difference is the size of the building. Like, I think it's the largest. It has the greatest, it's going to be 4 feet higher taller than the variant. Wow. Like, it's going to be quite large building.
Yeah. Okay, what about the width of it?
The width of it is going to be wider because they're asking for variance on both sides. Like on my side and on this number 93. Now, I wasn't able to talk to them at number 90. That house is vacant.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Ioannidis?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes, okay, just for a few issues, I understand the neighbor, she's a nice lady, I've spoken to her before. Right in front of both our houses is a flat roof house, the new modern built, right in front of us. There's another 4 on the street that are brand new, modern built homes that look almost identical to what I am proposing to build.
Do they have integral garages?
The integral garage is not on our street, but is in our backyard on Squires. There's a brand new built there with a garage, and there's a brand new build on Rexley, the street in front of ours, with an integral garage. So the garage, it does exist within the neighborhood. It's just not in front of us. But there are 4 brand new builds with flat roofs on that street. And that whole area is all being infilled, as you all know. And there's lots of them with flat roofs and modern builds. So it's not something new to the neighborhood.
So I take it that Cedar Crest is a fairly long street because you're at number 91?
Yes, sir. There's about 4 or 5 of them new builds on our street. There's one right in front of both of us. That's a flat roof, modern built, right in front of us. It's the only difference is that this will be, if it is granted, this will be the only house on Cedar Crest with an integral garage, but it's already been granted in the neighborhood. The street right behind us has one, Squires. The street right in front of us, Rexley, has one. Glen Albert has one. The whole neighborhood is starting to, who's ever got the size and has gotten the granted has put in the garages. So it won't be the only one, if granted, to have one. Just the only one to have one there on Cedar Crest.
Okay, do you have anything else to say, sir?
No, sir.
All right. So do you have any, panel, do you have any questions? No questions. Okay, sir, we're going to take this into committee. Okay, anyone have any comments? Or a motion?
I'm okay with the proposal because I can understand that if they're the first one have the integral garage may look odd, but as applicant was saying that in the whole area it started to have this an integral garage coming up. So I'm sort of accepting his explanation. And with the overall development, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Do you want to bring a motion?
I agree with Ms. Chan.
You agree? Lisa?
Yes,
Yeah, okay,
I agree with Ms. Chan's comments.
okay. So Yim, do you want to bring a motion?
Yes, I bring a motion to approve with the forestry condition number 2.
1 and 2.
1 and 2, the
Yes.
2 forestry, okay, 1 and 2 then. I only have 2 marked down here.
Yeah. Okay, seconder?
Second it.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval, sir, thank you.
Thank you, committee members. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item 4, St. Clair Gardens. Purpose of this application is to operate a fitness gym from the one-story building. Before us on this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, a staff report from Transportation, a letter from the counselor, and opposition from 1238 St. Clair Avenue and 6 St. Clair Gardens. Ms. Evangelista?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 4 St. Clair Gardens.
Yes.
As you have in front of you, 4 St. Clair Gardens is a unique site. It is on a flankage of St. Clair Gardens and St. Clair Avenue West, which is a commercial area. St. Clair Gardens has been operating as a commercial one-story building dating back to the 20s. It was at one point a furniture warehouse and then a home hardware for 37 years. And now we have an opportunity to house this fitness center. And this fitness center is a well-known and well-respected business that's known to the community in the area. They have been, it's community-driven. They have group classes and to encourage one another. And they also have a lot of children's programs, and teaching them nutrition, how to stay fit. So this is this is a use that is going to be something that will contribute to the area, to the neighborhood. As I said, they are a well-respected business owner. And we have transportation have sent in a letter. They recognize that there are 2 parking spots, and they have no opposition to the application itself. The local councillor, Anna Blau, she also recognizes that this is a unique site, that this will be, a great enhancement to the site itself, and she is also in support. We also have 23 signatures in support of this particular fitness center. There's number 5, St. Clair, just to name a couple that are within proximity. 5, 8, and also there's a few on St. Clair Avenue, all that back onto and front onto St. Clair Gardens. Now, we are in receipt of the letter from 1238 St. Clair. 1238 St. Clair, they have an eat-in restaurant, Sushi California, along with residential units above. So their comment about parking, I find that I'm somewhat perplexed because there is a lot of parking in the community. We have parking to the east, west, south. There's pay parking along St. Clair, and the parking that I'm referring to, they're large parking structures. They're large parking lots. So this is an area that's well known. As I mentioned, this is a use that's going to be that's going to contribute to the community itself. Most of it is walkable. This particular area is a very walkable area. It's accessible by streetcars. So the concern, and as you see from transportation, they do not have concerns with the actual parking issues. Insofar as the accessible, because this is an existing situation and there are stairs, we do not, however, should the need arise, and we do require, and we do have, someone that comes to the site that requires accessible, we do have the parking spot in the front that will be made available to them to access, and then we will also accommodate them to try to get into the building, of course, because the whole premise of this fitness center is to help aid those in the community and those in the area.
Okay.
And for this, I respectfully submit this does meet the 4 tests.
So when you say there are large parking garages in the area, are they commercial?
They're large parking garages, so they're either Green Pea or they're private. Like we have Norton Avenue, which is just to the east. They have a very large parking lot. We have parking along St. Clair. We have Corso Italia parking garage, which is just across the street. We also have McKay parking lot. So there's a lot of parking within the neighborhood to accommodate should anybody, but majority of these people, as I previously mentioned, this is a well-respected business that's been in the community for several years. So most of their patrons are all within the community, all within the neighborhood, all within the area that either access by walking or streetcar, minimal drive. And we have a lot of children too.
All right. Where are they presently located?
On St. Clair.
Near St. Clair Gardens?
Yes, just down the street from St. Clair Gardens. Yes, on St. Clair.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
I just have a quick one. Are you planning to do something, some improvement on the exterior of the building?
Well, the intention is, of course, we are going to pretty up the exterior of the property, and with some landscaping, just to make it much more attractive. Right, that is the intent. And no construction, nothing has happened at this site just yet. But the intent is, of course, because this is, well-respected business, so it will be made much prettier. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. Daniela Romeo.
To send this message now, press pound or hang up. To leave a callback number.
Sorry, I'm just mobile here, so it's a little bit hard for me to. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay. Sorry, thank you to the chair and the committee for having me. My concern, so I'm representing my mother, Grace Romeo, at 1238 St. Clair. And we just, we welcome any new business, especially one that will help to revitalize the area. Definitely, our concern was just the impact of the parking situation and the laneway behind the properties that are facing the side wall of the building. And we're just concerned that the laneway would be used as a parking and would block the entrance to the buildings that use that laneway. So that was our main concern, and sometimes people just park there and block the entrances, and we're just wondering if other areas around the building would be affected by the parking. So I missed a part of what the previous lady was talking about. So I'm not sure, I can't really respond to that, but that was our concern.
Okay. Does any panel member have any questions? No questions. Okay. Thank you. Ms. Evangelista, do you want to say anything? We lose her?
There's no parking, no standing. I actually visited the site on more than one occasion, and oddly enough, the car that was parked there belonged to Sushi California 1238 St. Clair. So that being said, there is no a right of way, as we all know. We cannot stand on it. We cannot park a car on it. It's just made for a throughway. Also, as I mentioned, transportation is in support of this application. There are many parking structures within the community. There is a lot of parking available. However, as I did say, this is a well-known and well-respected fitness center to the neighborhood and to the community. And those that do access it are those that live in the neighborhood, in the area, and in the community.
Okay. All right. Do we have any questions, panel? No. Okay, we're going to take it into committee. Any comments or a motion?
I'll just start. I find this to be a reasonable, in fact, quite a desirable readaptive use to that site. I get concerned about parking, but I was pretty much convinced by the agent that there is plenty of parking in around that area. I mean, people are going to be coming and going. I'm sure that the laneway will be signed as to not allow for parking. So I'm pretty comfortable with this application for change of use.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Larry because I belong to a athletic club that has got maybe 1,000 members that they provide zero parking. And I think that a lot of these in the whole area is very pedestrian. I find there are a lot of cafes, there's a lot of sidewalk, and I do not see the parking as a problem.
Okay. Lisa, do you have any comments?
Nothing that's already been touched upon. I'm comfortable with the application.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Is it?
I'll bring a motion forward for approval of the application. Sure. No conditions.
Okay. Seconder?
Yeah,
Larry?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
66 Rowanwood Avenue, pardon me, 56 Rowanwood Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing three-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear one-story addition and a rear ground floor deck. And on this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and a report from Heritage Preservation. Mr. Rosa, can we hear from you, please? Is he there?
There we go.
Mr. Rosa?
Yes, did you get that? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, almost.
Very good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Victor Rosa representing the owners of the property. Before you is an application for a one-story rear.
Sorry, Mr. Rosa, we're having trouble hearing you.
Existing three-story.
He's not,
Okay.
yeah. I think
My
better off.
How about now?
No, it's still the same. You sound very distant from the microphone.
Mr.
about
Rosa, Mr. Rosa, I'm going to canvass the panel to see if we need a presentation. Panel, do you need a presentation? Lisa, no. Yim?
Very good.
Larry? Nope, nope. Okay, Mr. Rosa, thank you. We don't need a presentation at this time. So do you have any questions or do you have any comments or do we have a motion?
I don't have any questions. I have comments, though. I feel that this is very simple application. It's a very small rear one-story addition. It tucks in within the existing footprint, more so to speak. It's not, going further beyond. So I'm happy to bring a motion forward for approval. I think this meets the 4 tests, and it would be subject to the conditions set out in the Heritage Preservation memo dated April 8th.
Do we have a seconder?
Okay, I will second that one.
Okay, all in
sorry.
favor?
I didn't see it.
All right, you have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Good afternoon.
You're welcome. Okay, 21 Robinwood Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter a 2.5-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear one-story addition with a roof terrace above. And on this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence in support from 17 Robinwood Avenue and a form letter in support from 15 Robinwood Avenue. Mr. Rubinoff, can we have your
Hi.
Yeah, just a minute. Let's
Good
see. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Good afternoon. It's Glenn Rubinoff here, representing the owners for 21 Robinwood Avenue.
Yeah. Can we have a short submission, Mr. Rubinoff?
Sure. This is basically a one-story rear addition on the back of the house. It's for them to have a little den, home office space, and a small roof terrace above that addition. And the total square footage of the addition is about 80 square feet. So it's about 7.44 meters, square meters.
Okay. So does any panel member have any questions?
Just one about the soft landscaping. That's an existing condition, is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have another small question. Variance number 4, is that existing condition too? The sign,
Yes, that's existing condition as well, yes. That's
Okay.
that's just where the house is set.
Okay. All right. Any further questions, or can we go into committee?
I'm prepared to make some comments on this one. This one is, again, very straightforward. I also noticed there was a prior variance approval for almost essentially what they're asking for now. They're just going slightly over that variance approval. I think, as Mr. Rubinoff pointed out, this is a very small one-story addition, and some of the variances already existing. So I'm happy to bring forward a motion for approval of this application, and it's not subject to any conditions.
All right. Do we have a seconder? Larry? Okay.
Sure.
All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
585 Bathurst Street. Purpose of this application is to construct a new front porch to the existing three-story detached dwelling, and what we have on this application is a material submitted by the applicant. So, Mr. Valentin?
Hello?
Yes. We can
Yes.
hear you. Please
Hello?
give us a...
Can you hear me?
We can hear
Hello?
you.
We can hear you. Hello. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Tony Valentin. I'm the agent for this project at 585 Bathurst Street. Our application is to construct this entrance to the existing building, and the variance is the setback, the front yard setback.
Is that
We cannot comply
existing?
with what is existing. Pardon me?
Is that existing?
Is that existing? Yeah, this is actually a relocated entrance to the building.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Which is exactly this, almost the same distance from the property line. The reason why we cannot comply is because this existing setback anyway is just 3.40 meters, which is really not as per the required setbacks by the bylaw. The bylaw, I think, requires 6 meters, but the existing setback is not 6 meters. We don't have that.
it is existing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Valentin.
Mr. Valentin.
Does
Thank you.
anyone have any questions?
Questions?
No questions?
Can I just might clarify? So this is an existing condition. So are we extending any closer to the sidewalk, or is that where you are just rebuilding? Rebuilding.
No, it's not extended to the sidewalk. We still have a space between the stairs actually and the sidewalk. There is still a landscape area there.
So the stairs are going to go where those bushes are now?
The stairs will go towards south. It's not towards the street.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Do
you,
have the
sir.
site plan or our plan?
All right. All right. Thank you, sir. Ari Bendor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Ari is not on in the waiting room for the WebEx meeting. We can try giving him or her a call.
You've tried?
Oh, no, we can try to. We have not done that yet.
We have, well, he was registered, let's see if we can get him.
Yeah.
It'd be like the same as if somebody else,
I don't know whether he's in opposition or not.
we don't know.
Hello?
Hi, Ari, are you there?
Yes.
All right. Did you, do you want to make any submissions on this matter?
To what?
585 Bathurst Street. This is a committee of adjustments from the City of Toronto calling.
Oh, that's right. You had a thing. Can you call me back in about 5 minutes?
No, we can't. We're in the middle of a hearing. You were notified.
The hearing was supposed to start at 1:30.
That's right. We got delayed because we have a bunch of applications and a bunch of people like you who are interested in the matter. So,
Okay. I have no objections. In fact, I welcome the addition of the porch, and I am interested in more alleyway and laneway houses in the neighborhood. So
okay,
if there's a way to increase the space and making the area beautiful, then I'm all for it.
okay, this isn't that application. So you're in favor of this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, panel. Anyone have any comments, or do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, in looking at this, I realize that the applicant's proposing to go a bit further or closer to the front lot line, but looking at the site plan, it doesn't look like they're going to be that much closer than what's already existing at the neighboring property at 589. I'm comfortable with this application. I have no concerns with the proposed variances requested in this case.
Any other
I'm ready
comments?
to second that.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make it a motion then for approval.
okay. Are there any conditions? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No.
Okay, you second it, Ian? All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, approved, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members of the committee. Have a nice afternoon.
All right, you too. All right, 24 Fairview Boulevard. And the purpose of this application is to alter a three-story detached dwelling by constructing a three-story rear addition with a third-story rear terrace. We have on this application material submitted by the applicant, a seven signature form letter in support by people on Fairview, opposition from 39 Dearborn and 12 Wolfrey. Mr. Hatch, could you just...
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Hatch. I'm the agent for 24 Fairview Boulevard.
Yeah, let me just canvass the panel to see if we need a presentation. It seems pretty straightforward. Is there anyone wants a presentation?
No.
No? Larry?
No.
Okay. Mr. Hatch, we're going into committee to make a decision. Anyone have comments, or do you want to make a motion?
I'm okay with the proposal. Sorry. Yeah, I'm actually okay with the proposal, but that's the 39 Dearborn asking for opaque screen on the third floor deck.
Yes. So we submitted revised plans. We are okay with adding a 1.5 meter privacy fence. At this point, we hadn't designed it exactly, so we're just trying to figure it out. So, but we are happy to put some sort of opaque fence up.
Do you know on what side, north, south?
We've actually proposed it on all three sides, but the opposition was to the north. But we actually have support from the neighbors on the east and west side. So we figured for everybody's sake, we'll just do it on all three sides of the deck.
Oh, okay. I have no further question.
Do we have a motion?
If there are any issues, I will move for approval with the condition that putting an opaque privacy screen on three sides of the first floor balcony.
We have a seconder? Yeah, Larry, second. All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. (674) Huron Street.
purpose of this application is to demolish the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling and construct a 3-story detached dwelling with a rooftop patio. We have before us in this application material submitted by the applicant, a report from planning, and correspondence and opposition from the Annex Residents Association and 676 Huron Street. Sandra Cicera, would you please give us your submission?
Hello, my name is Sandra Cicera. I reside at 8 Breezewood Drive in Toronto. My husband and I have been given the opportunity to build this home for the Finelli family. Do you want my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, okay. As an overview, I just wanted to give you a little history about the family that's purchased this home. Dr. Finelli is the chief of urology at Toronto General, and Dr. Scott is an orthodontist with a practice on Roncesvalles. They purchased this home to put their children commuting distance from the University of Toronto School, where they are both students. We are proposing a single-family home, a custom home that we've catered to the family that will be residing in it. I should preface my arguments with the fact that although we've applied for a new home permit, we are leaving the existing foundation, excluding the back wall. The home has an unfinished block basement, and our engineers determined that the footing and foundations are sound, and the current basement is dry. Underpinning would inevitably result in bringing water towards the property, which would need to be mechanically pumped to grade. So building a new home and leaving the existing foundation has triggered variances, both height and lot lines. I've submitted photos, if you can see them there. Figures number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And also, if you look at the site plan that the Committee of Adjustments have circulated, they all show the proximity of the neighboring properties, and figures 5, 6, and 7 to illustrated the paved back and front yards and the prevalence of balconies typical in the neighborhood. Which brings us to the challenges of building 674 Huron. The property is long but narrow. We have a foot to the neighbor on one side and a shared driveway on the other, with restricted vehicle access to the backyard and a no parking sign in front of the home. The answer for us was to put the air conditioner, the generator, and the patio on the roof, and to do an integrated garage. The rooftop patio is set back, so it does not overlook the neighbor's balconies, but does give the homeowners privacy. In 2014, the police service stats reported 13 car thefts in the annex. In 2019, it was 30. An integrated garage creates a secure place for my client's vehicle without affecting neighbors and allows the backyard to be left as green space. Rooftop balconies and integrated garages are permitted. So on the variances, our first variance is height of the front to the top of the guardrail. So the top of the crown facade on the proposed dwelling is 11.8. The guard is required by Ontario Building Code. Our intention is to do a glass railing with greenery behind it, giving privacy to the homeowners, and it'll soften the facade of the house. The second variance is building depth. We're asking for 0.98 meters. There is an existing addition that was added on, and for building purposes, it's preferable for us to excavate undisturbed ground for the new foundation wall. The area around the addition would have already been excavated and backfilled. But as a good note, the extension would also add privacy to the neighbor's first, second, and third floor balconies from our back windows. The third variance we are requesting is 0.17 more than the allowable FSA. So FSA is invoked to control density, and this is a single-family home. We also believe the increase to be comparable with development in the area. Can we show figure 8 and 9 in reference A7 of the drawings? I don't know if that's too much at once. So the fourth and the fifth variances deal with the height of the stairwell to the roof. And although the stairwell and the elevator are permitted and could technically be taller than they are, it triggers a front and back wall variance. In our 3D perspective figure 8, which is on the screen right now, you'll note that the access to the roof will not be visible from the street. Furthermore, if you look at A7 of the plans, it shows the structure is almost 17 feet back from the front facade, and it's only actually 13 by 13. It's not the whole roof, it's just a stairwell and the elevator. The 6th and 7th variants are existing conditions. So removing it would compromise the front corner of the house. It can be done. However, it would be less invasive if we leave it. And it's only 0.04 meters and 0.62 meters respectively, in my belief, minor in nature. The 8th variance, this is a minor 1%, and regardless of the requirements, our intention is to use permeable pavers. We're also doing a green roof around the air conditioner and generator, and removing the paved portion of our backyard to allow for a vegetable garden. 9th variant, this is an existing porch, again triggered by the fact that we are leaving the existing foundation. It's also 0.09 meters and minor in nature. We believe the variances are minor and in keeping with the official plan and meet the needs of this unique property. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. It's relating to the height, front main wall height variance. I understand the 14.52 meters from what you said goes to the top of the stair access. Is that correct?
So that's not the front. They're calling it the front, but the first variance, the top of the to the top of the guardrail is 13.5 meters. So it's allowed to be 12. The front of our house to the top of our actual crown is 11.8. But then for Ontario building code, I have to do a guard, and the guard puts us at 1305. And then,
I guess sorry, go ahead.
And then for variance number 4 and 5, zoning has called on the structure that we have coming out of the roof to allow for access. It's 17 feet back from the front, but they're still calling it another front wall. And they're saying that's 14, it is 14.52 meters, but you won't be able to see that from the street. Does that make sense?
Okay. It does, but I was trying to clarify, regardless of the top stairwell structure, if that was not existing, you're still going to be over for front main wall height, because as you said, it's 11.8 meters to the top without the guard. Is that correct?
Without the guard, yeah, but we're allowed 12 meters.
But for front main wall height, you're only allowed.
Permitted height of a building or structure is 12 meters. The height of the building will be 13.5 measured to the top of the guardrail. That was number 1.
I'm not talking about overall height. I'm trying to figure out if you didn't have the top stairwell structure, if you'd still be over for front main wall height.
I will not be over. I won't be over for front main wall height if the guard and the other structure wasn't there. I would be over sidewall.
Okay. But front you wouldn't be. That's surprising.
Not according to what zoning said. Because then it would
I thought I understood
on number
you to
1.
say it was 11.8 meters to the top. So typically front main wall height is to stop large boxy
stop flat homes and stop modern homes. This one isn't modern. We're using very classic, I'll say, materials.
Well, regardless of the materials, it still has that boxy tall shape. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, is I believe the front main wall height would still be over without the stairwell structure, but
not according to zoning, but it's to the railing that is.
So, sorry, can I just, so I appreciate, Lisa, your opening. I think this is an important issue, but you're saying that it is going to be a rooftop terrace. People will be up there. Building code requires that there is some sort of rail. So that, in effect, becomes an integral part of the building. And you're saying that with that rail, including that rail, you're still at 13.5.
Correct.
And that's 1.5 meters over the 12-meter allowable height.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
I have 2 questions. How does this fit in with the character of the neighborhood?
Personally, I believe it fits in well because of the materials that we're using. We also have a triplex on one side and almost a sixplex on the other. So it's not like it's going to be a very invasive. All of the structures on the street are 3.5 stories, 3 and 3.5 stories. So in my opinion, it fits in. In my client's opinion, it fits in.
Okay, one other question. There's a letter in there's a letter in the file from a neighbor who lives in lives in the basement of one of the adjacent buildings and is a cancer patient who just underwent surgery and is concerned about the
and if she's listening, my heart goes to her. I did submit our substance report. We don't have any of the substances that we don't need to get anything abated anyway. The property can come down. It will be taken down by hand, and we are leaving the foundation. So I think the confusion for her may have been the fact that it's called a new home, but we are actually leaving the foundation. So it'll be as little invasive as it can to her. The fact that her windows don't close and she lives in a basement apartment, I unfortunately can't do anything about that. She needs to talk to her landlord, but we are going to be as respectful as we can building. But we are leaving the existing foundation not to affect the neighbors on both sides. It would be impossible for us to do it. That's the other reason why we're not underpinning, not to bring water and all the other things that would come with that.
Right, but you're still going to tear down the building and you're still going to have dust and everything else. And I don't know that we have any authority to do anything about it.
You don't, but what's been put in practice by both the ministry and both builders that actually care a little bit about what they're doing is when we're demolishing, we are supposed to water it down. This particular property will be taken down by hand because we are leaving the foundation that's there. So we're leaving the foundation and the wall that's actually on her side is staying up, which is 2 of the variances because she's on the driveway side. And there are no, like I said, we've submitted the substance report, which shows that there are no substances that are illegal we would have to admit it anyway. But like you said, you have no authority, but there has been the Ministry of the Environment has put things in place to protect the neighbors. And like I said, builders have the ability to do more.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Marina.
Chair, before you start, can I just ask the agent? You've obviously seen the full planning staff report.
Just a minute.
Yes, I have.
Who's this? Oh, Larry.
Sorry, it's me.
Larry, I didn't realize.
I'm sorry, Chair. I was just asking the agent whether she's seen the full planning report because it goes beyond dealing with the concern about the height, and it talks a lot about fit and
character of the area,
and also about the status of the heritage work that's being done by the city in that area.
Correct. So I believe planning has given you context for their comments, and they've basically been put in the position of protecting the character of an area pending a potential study, a study the council approved in 2015. It has not been done yet. They are still in the process of starting it, but they haven't started it yet. And it puts council in the position of having to decide these cases on a one by their merits. But planning can't. Planning has to say, hey, this is what else is going on in the world. So that leaves you guys in the unenviable position to look back and then to solve all the problems that we need to fix moving forward. So do we want to pave everything because I have nowhere to park a car? No, I don't believe that's the answer. I believe an integrated garage is the answer to the problems that we have on that street. Does it fit into the look of the street. It can if it's done respectively. If we do wood doors, if we do materials that are a little more in keeping with the history of the area. But there's no other way other than an integrated garage. I can't get into the backyard. The shared driveway has it's a bay window that the neighbor has that protrudes out, and both of the hydro poles have been put, the hydrometers have been put at the side of the house and quite low so that you cannot get a car into the backyard.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, Marina Sogalis.
Hello. Hi, thank you, Chair. Yes, as you mentioned, as I said in my letter, I've been recently battling cancer 2 times, and I recently underwent a bone marrow transplant. As such, I'm immune compromised, not just from the treatments, but from the bone marrow transplant as well. And my doctor says, in addition to being quite weak, I'm not allowed to be near a construction site. So one so close to me would be quite potentially lethal to my health. Also, I'm in the basement, so it's very, very close to the other house, and it's just a few feet away. And I understand that they would be taking all kinds of precautions to not let the dust and everything fall, but it would still get in, even with the windows closed. It's kind of impossible to not breathe that in every day. Especially since it's such a narrow space between my apartment and the house in the basement where it would just go down. Also, things like mold and asbestos, which I saw in the report that they submitted. It said there was some asbestos in the building. But regardless, the mold as well, or anything else that would be just the dust from the building. In addition to that, the new building would be really long, and it would cut into our enjoyment of the backyard, which is the only amenity we have. So that would be an issue as well. It would be the only building on the block with this 4th story deck, and the only one with a flat roof as well, so it doesn't really fit the character of the block. So there's those issues as well. And more importantly is the fact it's so tall. We already get no light in here because we're in the basement. We have the lights on as soon as we wake up in the morning. It would be even dark. We get some sunlight in the early afternoon, but with something so tall, we're going to have no sunlight at all, and it would just be very, very gloomy in here. So I would request that this be rejected. Oh, you can see in figure 8, I believe that is. My windows would be at the very, very bottom there, facing the driveway.
All right. Do we have any questions? Mrs. Sogalis? No. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Cicera?
So I've read that report, and there is nothing in the report about asbestos at all. If there was, then we would have to have it abated, and that's quite a process, and you know what it is, so it wouldn't affect the neighbor whatsoever. The backyard of the property that you live in, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I was there last week, and there's 14 garbage bins, a pile of debris sitting in the middle, bikes taken apart. Like, the landlord is someone that you need to address. There isn't one speck of green space in your backyard. There's a tree that they have literally paved up onto the tree. There is nothing back there green. So the fact that you say you're back there, you shouldn't be anyway with your compromised immune system. But that's neither here nor there. As far as flat roofs, If you look at figure number 6, most of the roofs are flat in the neighborhood. They have either mansard roofs or dormers in the front, but most of the roofs are flat in the neighborhood. So I'm not quite sure where she comes with that one. And the house is only 3 feet longer than the one that exists now. And again, we're doing that because they had put an addition on the house, and I need to get down to solid footing. And because I'm not making the house deeper, I need to make sure that where we excavate, we have solid footing. That's the only reason we're coming out, and it protects the balcony. There are 3 balconies and the 3 balconies for 672 as well. So that's what I have to say to that.
So, panel, do you have any questions? No questions? All right. Mrs. Sarah?
Yes?
Is your client prepared to do anything for Ms. Sagalis and her compromised immune system?
What is it exactly that I can do?
Move her into an apartment away from the construction until the construction is over.
And if she got the liability of that committee, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how we can be held accountable for the fact that her windows don't close. Like, that's really something she needs to take up with her landlord. Like, I'm not even sure that you could impose that if you could. Like, God forbid something happens to her when she's living in a separate apartment. Well,
Chair, maybe Chair, as a suggestion, maybe before we deal with any kind of possible mitigation measures, we might want to chat in committee a little bit about whether we're comfortable with the proposal as presented in its whole first.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Sarah. Sarah. All right, we're now in committee. Do we have comments?
I'm prepared to start on this one. I have concerns for some of the variances here in terms of the height variances requested. The planning department has noted, and I agree with this, that the introduction of the integral garage, in my view, pushes up the height of the building. It creates a larger, boxier building than what is in keeping with existing in the neighborhood. And the addition of the rooftop patio, I think, is pushing up the appearance of the height of the building. I think that could be potentially an invasion of privacy, and I think the stairwell adds to the height. So I feel that, in my view, I'm not supportive of the application in terms of the overall height, or the most importantly the front and the main wall height of the building. And I think that's contributed to from the fact that there's an integral garage, which pushes up the overall height of the building.
Yeah. Larry, do you have a comment?
Yeah, no, I share those concerns. Well, I share the main concern about height. It is considerably higher than just about anything in that neighborhood. It has basically a 4th-story terrace. And looking around at the other homes in that neighborhood, there are areas where there are rooftop decks or rooftop terrace, but they're over the 2nd story, not the 3rd. And this, I think, projects the house into a height category which far exceeds just about everything in that area. I'm on the fence in terms of, some of the heritage issues and look and feel. But I think, and we all know that, rooftop terraces, notwithstanding everyone's best intentions, that sound does carry. You do get oversight issues. I just think that this particular proposal, with that extra height that includes a rooftop terrace, is excessive and is inconsistent with the general character of the neighborhood. And I don't think I'd support it as proposed either.
Jim?
Yes, a few comments. Actually, I am not too bothered by the style, and I agree with the applicant that it's got a lot of articulation. In terms of the texture, it probably goes with the type of housing in the area. But what I'm bothered is also the same as bothered both of our colleagues is the height. It seems that this proposal does not want to make a small compromise, because I'm calculating the ground floor to second floor, for example, floor height is 14 and it's almost 14 feet, or yeah, it's 14 feet, and floor to floor height is 9 feet, which is quite high for a standard residential, a single family housing. I'm not trying to say you cannot have a higher ceiling height. I'm just saying in this context, if they can actually do a little bit of compromise, take away a little bit from each floor, it will have lower the overall height. And I'm okay with a flat roof, and I've seen that the design actually will probably more compatible to even the pitch roof next to it. It's about at least maybe like a meter lower or a meter and a half lower. And I'm agree with both of them, and I cannot support this application here.
Yeah, I can't support the application either. I think the style is not compatible with the area. The height is too high, and I don't want to make comment about the neighbor, but I wouldn't support it in any event. So we have a vote. We have a motion.
Oh, I will move to refuse the application.
All right, seconder.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor of the motion? Motion, application refused. Nine Hickson Street. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing three-story townhouse by making interior alterations and constructing a rear third-story addition. And with this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence and support from 81 St. Clarence, and a four-signature petition and support by owners or occupants of 11, 15, 38, and 44 Hickson Street. Mr. Nawrocki?
Yes. Good afternoon, committee. My name is Mark Nawrocki. Yep.
Yeah, let me just canvass the panel and see if we need a presentation in this matter. Does anyone think we need a presentation? Nope.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nawrocki. Do we have comments or a motion?
I'll just start. This looks fairly straightforward, very simple. There's no opposition. I think the proposal looks quite modest and is in keeping with the area, so I think it's a fairly straightforward application. I would move to approve, and I don't believe there are any conditions.
All right. Seconder?
I agree. I'll second it.
All right. All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
217 Howard Park Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing three-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear two-story addition with a ground floor deck and second floor balcony. On this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence in concern or interest from 18 Hyde Park Gardens, opposition from 219 and 221 Hyde Park Avenue. Pavlo Turco, can we hear from you?
Yes, present.
Okay. We have your presentation, please.
I've gone through the letters. The letter from 18 Howard Park is just, even the author of the letter at the last sentence said that he's inconclusive, so he doesn't know whether in support or in objecting to it, right? The other two are just general objection to densification in the area. I believe our proposal is very modest. The building, the appearance on the street is intact. The number of units is still the same. We are just increasing the living conditions of the tenants of the building by enlarging their apartments by virtue of this rear two-story addition. I think the proposal is very modest and it's very subtle in the character of the neighborhood, and all the variances are truly minor, and I'm submitting for approval.
All right, thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay. Anne Menely and Vedila Benelis?
Yes.
Yes, can we have your submission, please? Please tell us who you are first. Hello.
Hi, Anne. You are unmuted. You should be able to speak. We can hear you. Try speaking into the microphone.
Vidila and I are the owners of 219 Howard Park Avenue. I think my husband will likely, he's an architect and gave fairly detailed recommendations about how the submission made by Mr. Turco might be revised so as to be a little bit more acceptable. If he wants to address the actual plans that my husband submitted, that would be great.
Well, can you tell us what impact this would have on you as designed?
Yes, it was, Vidila, can you please speak to them?
Hello?
Okay, excuse me. Hello, if you could unmute my husband, Vidila Benelis,
Yeah.
he would like to speak to this.
And I'll mute you and then I'll unmute your husband. Just give me 1 second, okay?
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for that. I'm at my office and we're at separate locations. I did submit a fairly detailed letter. Unfortunately, I disagree that changes to this are modest and in character with the neighborhood. This is a pretty unique part of the city in that it's Howard Park bends down south towards Parkside Drive, and it creates a series of ever sort of tightening lots along the southern edge of Howard Park. Ours is kind of the second property along that tightening set of lots. Yeah, you have the letter up there. Thank you. So really the main concerns that we have are that as the lot gets narrower and narrower, and the houses typically step back at a certain point off the side property lines. The current proposal does not. It extends their long party wall, not a party wall, but their long side yard wall all the way south. It's over 9 meters high along the sidewall, which exceeds the allowable height from 7.5 to over 9. You know, it does significantly impact the look and feel of that side of the house. So I'm just going to run through these really quickly. Converging properties was one issue. The increase in density, I don't understand at all. Increasing from 0.6 to 0.75 times coverage without increasing the number of rental units seems perfectly reasonable to work within that. Looking at their documents, it looks like there's an additional 24 square meters of density available to stay within the 0.6. So I don't really understand, and I wouldn't support that. The architectural quality is very little has been done. I've made some detailed comments about it. It's an unrelenting wall along the west face of the building, and has some quite odd detailing where the height of the wall intersects with the gables, cutting into the gable in a very unusual way. Recessing the addition somewhat would certainly alleviate that. Finally, the site landscaping. This is an entirely paved site. It's essentially a parking lot, very much not in keeping with the neighborhood. It has a very small landscape plot at the very front of the building, but otherwise it's essentially asphalted lot, which, because of the way the site slopes, actually drains onto our property. We'd certainly like to see some sort of mitigation to the permeability of the site. But, you know, we understand that people need to change things. We are not against something happening on this site. We would just propose some revisions to it to try and mitigate the way that the building sits. What's up on the screen now is showing the sort of implied back wall of all the properties that kind of go along there. And then beyond our property, it starts to step towards the south because the properties really converge and get very, very narrow. There is a pretty good drawing that came out with your package that has the sort of city grid and the very small. It's unfortunately not in this package, but you can start to see it here on screen. But and that previous drawing, if you flip to it, has a kind of impression of what that right there, yeah, of approximately what an addition, you know, if you were to reduce it, set it back, and create it to a you know, allow a little breathing room, and add a little bit of area to the tune of the 24 square meters that would bring it up to the 0.6. It is a very, very large addition. It's covering what is essentially a parking lot. So I would ask the committee to refuse this application in its current form.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, Mr. Turco.
Yeah, as much as we appreciate the effort of the neighbor, being a colleague architect, what he's proposing is not changing the intent of the proposal. We're still into gross floor area, and the side setbacks were never variances, same as lot coverage and landscaping. So it's not even subject to variance, right? This area is developing, as we know. It's lots of rental properties here. And the call from the city and the call from the demographics is to increase living conditions, to invite more young families to rent in this area. And this was the intent, right? To enlarge the apartments. As for massing and aesthetics, it's all subjective. You can design houses in 10 different ways, and the applicant is quite happy what he's proposing. I still think it's the subtle addition. The existing house remains almost intact. We're actually improving it by virtue of 2 dormers, and the front elevation stays the same. The presence on the street is the same. It's not worsening the condition as it is. So I'm still submitting to the committee to actually approve this application as submitted. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question of the applicant. I'd like to know what the existing FSI is. I'm trying to find that on the site plan or the plans, but.
Sorry, what was the existing?
I'm looking, yeah.
There's a chart on first page.
See that, yeah. So if you can tell me what that is, please.
So in the column called gross floor area, there's total. So it's maximum allowed. Are you asking about existing?
Existing. I'm trying to figure out how much more you're adding. I mean, I can figure out, you know, how much more you're putting beyond what the bylaw allows, but are you currently under the bylaw for gross floor area? It sounds like you are.
That's right, we are.
Do we have a number for that?
So the maximum, we're going 55 square meter over the maximum allowed.
And I'm not asking that. I can tell that by looking at the agenda.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
Okay.
I want to know what you currently are at, so I can get a sense of how
So we have-
large this addition is in comparison to what's currently there.
I see. 76 square meter on the ground floor, 77 square meters on the second floor, which makes it 160, and existing is 50, so it's 210 square meters.
210 square meters. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We're going to take it into committee. Any comments? Do we have a motion?
I see my colleagues both feverishly doing some ciphering here, so I'll just talk while they finish off their calculations. I acknowledge the neighbors' concerns and well thought out and well presented points, but I'm not sure that the proposed changes are terribly dramatic in terms of the context of the size of the house, its location close to High Park. It's a big house already. I don't think I have the kind of issues with this one which would cause me to not support it. So I think I'm fine with it.
Okay. Any other comments? Yim?
Yeah, I agree with Larry. Actually, I'm looking at the two ways. Sometimes you look at the impact, and I think that there's enough distance between the houses, and these are irregular lots. So and they're not looking for any side yard setback variances or depth. And I have no problem with the proposal.
Okay. Lisa, do you have any comments, or do we have a motion now?
I don't have anything further to add.
Okay. We have a motion.
I'll move a motion, Chair, to adopt and approve this application. There are no conditions that I can see, so approve without condition.
All right, second.
And I was second that.
Okay, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
.390 Delaware Avenue. Purpose of this application is to construct a full third-story addition to the existing two-story detached dwelling. Mr. D'Oliveira? Oh.
Hi, my name is Mike D'Oliveira.
All right, we have, just give me a moment. We have material submitted by the applicant. We have support from 382, 323 Delaware, and 101 Hallam. Okay, Mr. D'Oliveira, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mike D'Oliveira. I'm here representing 390 Delaware for replacement design located at 911 Davenport Road.
Okay, let me just canvass my panel and see if they need a presentation. It looks pretty straightforward.
Not me, no.
Okay, we don't need, thank you, Mr. D'Oliveira. We don't need a presentation. Any comments, or do we have a motion?
This is quite straightforward, and they're asking, I consider the variance minor, and they're asking for 20% of the floor area increase. I'm ready to move for approval with no conditions.
Is that a motion? Go ahead, Lisa.
I thought that was a motion. Was that a motion, Ian?
Yes, yeah, for
yes. Yes, I agree. I'm prepared to second that motion. This does not look like a large addition, and it looks like it's set back slightly from the front in any event. So I'm happy to second it.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
27 Lanark Avenue. Purpose of this application is to obtain consent to sever the property into 2 undersized residential lots, and then to approve the variances of the 2 retained lots, the 2 lots. And on this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence from Development Engineering, and Right-of-Way Control Center, Bell Canada, and Urban Forestry. Mr. Benskowski.
How are you?
Good. Again.
It's been a long day of watching.
Yes.
So Jonathan Benskowski here on behalf of the applicant. In terms of the consent application itself, this application has gone on some significant communication with the planning department to arrive at a design as well as the appropriation of the 2 dwellings on the lot itself. The zoning bylaw permits the semi-detached dwellings to have a frontage of 12 meters, or essentially 6 meters per lot. Okay, in the RM zone itself, where this is located in such close proximity, being 1 street south of Eglinton, the RM itself looks for multiple unit dwellings. So the appropriateness of a semi-detached dwelling in this instance, in my opinion, is appropriate. Additionally, if we could put up the survey, please. As we can see, the current existing house today occupies half of the lot. The western portion of the lot is completely vacant. So the actual setback we have now is 6.01 meters from the edge of the existing dwelling to the western property line. So essentially, this is the filling in of a vacant lot in the city of Toronto. I also did show a small lot study in my submissions that really indicate that this is only one of 2 lots along Lanark itself that is this large that would have the availability of a development like this. So being that 50% of the lot is essentially undeveloped, in my opinion, the consent application is appropriate for this development. In terms of the variances are also, in my opinion, very minor in nature due to the appropriation of the dwelling on the lot itself. We could just zoom in a little bit to the rear. Here we can see the stepping back. There are 2 lines as we come in from the rear of the dwelling towards the front. There we can see the stepping back of the dwelling itself. So when we look at the height and how it's been appropriated on the property itself, and if we could go to one of the side elevations, please. Thank you. One up, please. Yeah, perfect. We see there at the rear of the house. So the impact of the request of the height is mitigated to the adjacent neighbor by that stepping back of the wall. So the dwelling itself will not read as having that full height that is requested in the zoning bylaw. It tiers itself back in as we go up. The other variance I'd like to address in a little bit more detail would be the side yard setback request. The side yard setback request of 0.9 meters, in my opinion, is appropriate for this land. The existing dwelling is located 0.41 meters from the eastern setback as it is today. And as we can see, the existing dwelling to the west at number 29 has a 0.61 meter setback that exists today. This is a tightly knit urban area, again, very close to the Eglinton Crosstown. And an infill development of this type, in my opinion, is both appropriate as well as desirable, and really satisfies the official plan policies of OPA 420 of what fits in with the street and is the most frequently occurring. I think it's important to also remember that the semi-detached is a reduction in frontage that is put in as an exception of this RM zone. So the actual exception itself of 252 further reduces the required frontage, which tells us that a development of this type is really what the city is looking for in a neighborhood like this. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
I have a question, sorry,
Oh,
of
sorry.
Mr. Binkowski. In terms of, I was trying to unmute and it took me too long. In terms of setbacks, that was one of the things I was concerned with, side yard setbacks. I understand what you're saying about this lot where the existing house is, adjacent house. Are there other examples on the street where some of the setbacks are fairly close together? Because I'm not disputing the fact that you're proposing semis. I'm just trying to figure out in terms of setbacks how that will fit in with the rest of the street as between this set of semis and the adjacent neighbors.
Yes, well, the like I said, the adjacent neighbor to the west is presently, I believe it was it's 0.6. Yeah, actually, even if we could just leave it there, Jacob, as we can see.
That helps.
Oh, sorry. As we can see here from this overhead map, we can already see the reduction in the setbacks of many of the dwellings there. There aren't generous setbacks between the dwellings that exist there today. So really here is a good example of what exists today.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, let's go to Laurie Lawson.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Lori Lawson is not present, but Jody Rodier is.
Okay, let's hear from her. So is Lori Lawson not going to speak?
I'm not sure, but it's the same address as Jody, so perhaps we can hear from her first.
Let's find out from Jody what the story is. All right, so Jody Rodier.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak. This is a novel experience. I have been watching since 9:30 this morning. Fascinating. I apologize in advance if I don't frame things properly. This is a first-time experience for me. I am speaking on behalf of my wife, Lori Lawson, and myself. We are the owners of 29 Lanark, and obviously the property directly adjacent and the one property that is most directly impacted. As the other properties on the east side, it's basically abuts the end of their backyards. We would like to point out a couple of things, one of which is that the owner lives elsewhere. This is a commercial endeavor, either for the purpose of rental or for sale. I understand that change is coming, and we're not objecting to change. We're not even objecting to renovation. Obviously, they are changing the original footprint. Right now, that footprint is quite wide. That allows for maximum sunlight coming in from our side window, which, while the developer does seem to be suggesting that is addressed by the staggering of the back of the property, I would still indicate that if they want to do the side easements that much closer and go up higher, which both are in the projected proposal, that they are going to impact direct sunlight to our house. I have concerns regarding the impact this will have on my foundation. I also have concerns with regards to water runoff and what that might do in between the space. Largely, I would also like to point out that there are these lovely cherry trees, both in the front and in the back of the established property that exist. Those trees were already full grown when we moved here in 2005. They have not been cut down, so they're continuing to grow. So I would estimate that they're at least 20, 25 years old. I'm curious as to what will happen to those trees, as they are cherry trees and therefore encourage pollinators from an environmental standpoint. With regards to privacy, if you are able at all to look at the original plan for the property lot, you will note that there is a cinder block garage that runs literally the entire backyard end of the property on 27. That is a cinder block garage that runs 1 story for 2/3 and then is double story at the back. It has been a wonderful privacy buffer for us, both with our neighbors behind us and obviously to the side. The loss of said privacy is something we are curious as to how that will be addressed. And like I said, largely beyond that, I would argue or implore you that while we do not have an issue with them severing the property or making 2 lots, we recognize that the side variance and the height variance are about trying to maximize as much possible space footage-wise to make it a more sellable product. That in terms of the detached, they are talking about it going to 0.96 times the area of the lot. To me, that is not minor, that is major, and that is taking up a fair bit of the lot. That the side variances would shift it from basically my side space and the 1.5 that is the actual maximum limit, which would be a fairly decent, maybe 7.5, 8 feet, I would estimate. To suddenly we would be down to about 6 feet between the buildings. A 3-story building on this block is unusual. All of the story buildings on this block stretch are 2-story or single-story. If you want to see what the impact of a tall, skinny building looks like, you are welcome to go look at 12 Lanark Avenue, where they put a 3-story skinny building in between 2 single-story buildings. I'm not opposed to renovating. I'm not opposed to what they're trying to do, and will make the neighborhood look nicer. I fully acknowledge that, but we do have our concerns with regards to privacy, lighting being changed in our home, which we have lived in for more than basically 15 years, and with regards to what impact this will have on our foundation, as well as our privacy in the backyard. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope I have not misstepped in any way. I appreciate you hearing us out. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Rodier? No questions? All right, Daniel Park. Mr. Park?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, Mr.
Hello?
Yep. Hi, Mr. Park, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you. Can we have your presentation?
Sorry, I missed that. Okay, so I guess I have the floor. Is that what the process is?
Yeah, so I noticed you just joined the hearing. So we have already heard from the applicant and one individual in opposition to the application. So you have 5 minutes to present your case.
Okay, well, I guess I will hear it. I'll keep it short because I don't really have a whole lot to say. My concern basically is that the building is quite close to the property line already on the side, and that as the end it's quite tall, and so as a result it's casting quite a lot of shadow into the first third of the day. The backyard doesn't really get any light, and so I think that there's a lot here that are being proposed. My opposition specifically is to making the building taller and making it closer to the side. Generally, I guess it's just, I don't know, I suppose for my part, it's sort of like incrementally reducing the amount of day I get. But also, I guess it is making the property closer to the side lot, and it is a 2-story building, and so the amount of space between, that's being allowed for any sort of, if extra work needs to be done, if windows need to be fixed, if eaves need to be replaced, or any roofing work need to be done. I feel like there's something of an additional risk for both the property owner and for myself and for any workers in that area. And so those are my two main concerns
All right,
regarding those two factors.
Mr. Park, where is your house in relation to 2027 Lanark?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I am lot, where am I? I'm lot 20. So, sorry, not lot 20, lot 79.
So that doesn't help me.
Oh, okay. Because it's so I am on the east side. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, I'm 160.
I see where you are. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a house between you and 27 Lanark? Or is that a
No,
garage?
that's a backyard, and then that sort of small building to the side there is my neighbor's garage.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have questions? No questions? Okay, we're going back to Mr. Benskowski.
Yes, thank you. Can I just ask Mr. Park one quick question? Is Mr. Park at 160 Almeida?
That's his address, yes.
Correct. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, just to deal with a couple of the points raised by the individual at 29 Lanark. In terms of water runoff and engineering, if approved, that would all be dealt with, as we know, through a grading plan. There is no issues from engineering on the proposal that's before you today. In addition, any foundation, due to the proximity of 29 to 27, most likely shoring would be required on 27, and that would deal with any type of foundation issues that might arise, if any were to arise. So that would really be dealt with at the building permit stage through most likely shoring that would be required along that edge. In terms of privacy, that would be lost from the removal of the rear garage. A new privacy fence between the two properties would be erected. And Jacob, if we could just go back to one of the side elevations quickly, if possible. In terms of privacy and overlook, as we can see, there are no side windows proposed along the side walls of the dwelling itself. Okay, and if we could go back to the site plan quickly. That's perfect. If we could just zoom in at the rear. If we actually look at where this proposed dwelling ends, the first floor of it ends approximately 3 feet past the existing rear wall of number 29. As that building continues up through to the second and to the third floor, as we can see, it tiers back. Now that tiering back takes a proposed building length on the first floor from 16.97 to 15.24 meters on the second floor. So we're talking about roughly 1.7 meters that we're losing going from the first floor to the second floor. So a 6-foot recess is occurring just on the second floor itself. Now going up to the third floor, we have a proposed length of 13.06 meters. That's almost a 4-meter tier back up to that third floor. So the presence of that building, as you would see from the adjacent houses, not only at 29 Lanark, but also to Mr. Park on Almeida, is mitigated by that stepping back of not having a blank wall extend the full height. Now, a quick note on the height variance request itself. It is only a main wall height request. It's not a height request. Now, why I make the point of that is the LPAT still hasn't rendered a decision based upon the main wall heights, whether that is a fully enforced part of 569/2013. That's still something they're going back and forth on to decide on the appropriateness of a main wall height even requirement in the zoning bylaw itself. So to address a couple of the things of Mr. Park, if we could go back to that overhead map, Jacob, the original kind of flyer sent out. Yes, that one. If we could zoom in on that one. If we look at where Mr. Park is located, Mr. Park is I mean, it looks to me like, I would say at least 40 to 50 feet away from what's there. Now, Mr. Park talked about the setback that's there. The existing setback that's there today is 0.41 meters to that property line on the east, which abuts Mr. Park's dwelling. We are proposing to increase that from 0.41 to 0.91 meters. Additionally, the concern of whether access would be able to do that 3 feet is more than enough area. If you had to have your eaves cleaned or anything like that, you would be able to work within that 0.91 meters to adequately access as well as service anything that may arise along that property line itself. I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Okay, we're going into committee. Any comments or anybody have a motion?
I'll start on this one. In terms of the consent, I don't see, it's apparent that this is sort of the largest lot or one of the largest lots in the area. There's been information provided by Mr. Binkowski in terms of the reduction in lot front. Seem to be, it's minimal in my view, and I think I'm in favor of the consent. I don't see this, creating two lots out of this one large lot is going to impact the current existing lot pattern in the area. I think it fits in with that. In terms of the variances, initially on first blush, I looked at it and thought, geez, I don't know, 3 semis, 3 stories, you know, they look large with the integral garages, but I think there's been a lot of effort made by the applicant to mitigate that. I don't find the increase in height to be too imposing, in particular because there is a step back at the rear and a significant step back. We don't have a depth variance here. And the other issue I was on the fence about was the reduction in side yard setback. But in this case, I don't feel it is, it's improving it on the east side than what currently exists. And I think I'm satisfied from a view of the street and Mr. Binkowski's submissions that, you know, this reduction isn't out of keeping with what is happening in other lots in the area. So I'm in favor of both the severance and the variances as proposed.
All right. Any other comment?
I would just echo, I'd agree entirely. I just add, I mean, they are pretty big lots, or it is a big lot, and it's only a very, very minor variance to sever. I just add to that it is, I think, within walking distance of Eglinton where there is major rapid transit, hopefully in our lifetime will be completed. And gentle density intensification is what we should be doing in neighborhoods that are adjacent to these new kind of transit investments.
Larry, I think it may, you should wish that hopefully in your children's lifetime it'll be finished.
You're probably right.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the smallest reduction of frontages that I've seen on a severance and an application. So I would, and I don't find, like Lisa, I agree with Lisa, none of these variances are asking too much. I would support an application approval, both the consent and the variances. Do we have a motion? Vim, do you have any comment, or do you want to bring a motion? You're muted. Yim, you're muted. Muted. Yes.
Okay. I said those were really good comments, and I do not think the side yard setback can be increased because then house will become too narrow, really. And I'm okay with the proposal. just be mindful there's Bell Canada request for easement besides this assessment.
Pardon? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'm prepared to bring a motion forward for approval of the consent. With the usual consent conditions, I believe. And as well, a motion for approval of the variances for both Part 1 and Part 2, with, I believe, there was urban forestry condition number 3.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the urban forestry condition number 3, I believe they wanted that attached to the consent.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, so then the urban forestry with the standard consent conditions on the consent.
Right.
And I don't think there are any conditions on the variances then.
No, just that the consent has
Okay.
to be finalized before they can get a permit.
Okay. Do we
Okay,
have a
thank you.
seconder?
I'll second that.
All right, Larry, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the evening.
Okay. 370 Jones Avenue. The purpose of this application is to obtain consent to sever a residential lot into 2 undersized residential lots for redevelopment. And then we have the applications for variance to construct a new 3-story semi-detached dwelling with rear 3rd-story terrace on the conveyed lot. And the second one is to construct a new 3-story semi-detached dwelling with rear 3rd-story terrace on the retained lot. And we have on this application, which has been submitted by the applicant, we have staff reports from planning, engineering, transportation. And we have opposition. Mr. Sun, would you give us your presentation, sir?
Hi, my name is Andrew Sun. I'm the agent of the 370 Jones Avenue. On behalf of the owner and the applicant, this is quite a long process for us that we're going back and forth quite a bit of time with planning staff to result a design proposal that both parties agreed thinks is best fit for the neighbor. Based on our research, there's a suffering proposal a few numbers north from us, which is 390 Jones Avenue. In 2009 was successfully severed into 2 semi-detached houses. It has the same lot frontage as us. So as we speak with the planning staff, they're okay in terms of serving the lot. Because of the Jones Avenue, there's a lot of semi-detached houses around the neighborhood. They think it's probably this proposal will most likely fit into that characteristic. At the same time, when we further design sort of with this 2 semi-detached houses, if we can go to the site plan. So basically, there's the property at the south of 370 Jones has quite of linear and quite a long length of a building existing 2 stories, just as the south of us. So we're trying to design our house sort of match, which you can see at the grid line, grid line F, trying to match with the existing neighbor's building length. At the same time, when we design the 3rd stories on top of the building, we'll try to set back from that grid line F, which respect the 17 meters building depth requirement for the from the zoning bylaw. At the same time, from the front of the building and the Great Line A, it's the existing building footprint at the front, which is in the center line of the two adjacent neighbor. We're trying to establish our front facade at the same location, but at the same time recess our third floor back to the Great Line A1. This is a particular design massing and design look that we have discussed with the planning staff, and probably they agree that based on the proposal and the 3D renderings we provide, they think the current proposal wasn't creating a tremendous massing from the street view. At the same time, I just want to point out during this application, we're trying to apply parking at the front of the lot based on the planning staff's comment. Basically, the planning staff trying to, the planning department is trying to reserve the look of the urban facade instead of having this garage kind of looking at the front of each property. So in that sense, we're willing to remove the parking pad that we currently previously proposed for this design. In result, we don't have any parking for either of the properties, but we have contact with a street parking department. They told us there's hundreds of temporary parking spot on Jones Street at Jones Avenue, and the planning staff are okay that we for those two property development we can just take a spot as a temporary parking on the street. And we're trying to work out the building height as well, trying to respect the total building height of the 10 meters, giving consideration that we're trying to recess our front facade and rear facade to respect the building depth regulation from the zoning. It's just because the nature of the lot has a quite steep slope from the north to the south. That's why in result, one of the building, it's slightly going over, a little bit going over 10 meters. And,
Mr. Sun, your time is up. Could you just wrap up?
Yeah, so based on the research, we're looking at the area, and then which we have it in the presentation materials. We saw a few buildings are having a FSI around the area we're trying to propose, and especially at the 40 Boat B Avenue, and they're asking for the height of 10 meters and depth of 20.65 meters. 76 Shoutdale Avenue, FSI 1.46. And at the same times, we saw 342 Jones Avenue asking for a density 1.36. Also 136.
All right.
130.
Thank you, Mr. Sun. Your time's up.
Through you, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. The next person, it just wanted to listen. They're not going to be speaking.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. So, does anybody have any questions of Mr. Sun?
Yeah, I do. I'm just looking at the front facade of the existing dwelling that's on the property. The final two buildings, will the building be narrower than the one that's currently on the property right now?
It's yes, actually, it's slightly narrow because what happened is it's the building has. If we can go to the set plan, I can just further explain. The diamond shape of the hatch area that you can see from the existing property, it's existing footprint of the proposed existing footprint of the building, and it's abut against the north property line, and the little nub at the south is the second floor sort of floating. And then they just use the area below as a parking pad. So we're trying to pull back the site facade from the north property line, and then respect a 0.45 site offsite zoning regulation.
And are you seeking height variance as well? So is it is the proposed new buildings going to be higher than the current peak of the existing building?
We don't believe so. We're trying to. We are trying to keep everything lower than 10 meters, as I mentioned, because the lot was sloping towards the south. That's why one of the building was 0.2 meters above the 10-meter Lawrence. We're just sort of trying to give the same ground floor level for both buildings. It's just the nature of the lot sort of force us to go a little bit higher than the regulated height. But from what the existing building has, it seems like we're not trying to go any significantly higher than the existing peak of the roof.
Any further questions, Larry?
No, thank you, Chair.
All right. Anybody else have any questions of Mr. Sun?
I just have a question relating to the frontage. I believe, I know this is a detached, there are other detached around that area. I know this area. There are semis along Jones as well, I believe. Will these two lots, in terms of how will they relate to the other semis along Jones? Will it be similar in size in terms of lot size? Because you're asking for reduction in frontage.
Yes, that's right. I think if we can, there's a image we took for 390 Jones Avenue. It's at the very end of the supporting document. When we move towards the north of the street, 390 Jones, and I believe it will be 384, and then you can actually see there's a two semi buildings already on the street, just a little bit north of us. And then 370 Jones was the one that successfully siphoned in 2009, which has exactly a frontage as us.
Sorry, what was the last one? You said 390, and then
390, and then the one at the south of it. I think it might be 384.
Okay. And these are just going north closer to the Danforth or south towards Gerard?
It's going north towards the Danforth.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So there's instances of other lots of this size then, supporting semis?
Yep.
So, Yim, do you have a question?
No, I actually, I take into all the consideration they have put forth to make this work. It's very, very tight site. And it seems that they have come up with a good solution for development.
So do we have any further comments or a motion? Do we have a motion?
I'm waiting for anyone have want to make some comments? I would like to.
No, I'm just, while we've got the agent on, I'm just looking now at 390. So did you say that 390 has actually got less frontage?
Oh, no, it's the same frontage as us, exactly the same.
Okay. Well, that's helpful because that actually gives a more visual perspective of how it would fit in on the lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, do we have,
If I could,
yeah?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I was just a little bit concerned with the severance size and the skinniness and narrowness of the lot, but if that's a representation of what the end product would look like, I think that's reasonable for the neighborhood. It's a busy street, so I'm comfortable with the variances and the severance.
All right, Yim, did you have something to say?
Oh, just one quick question. The transportation is asking to restore the opposite driveway to soft landscape. Does the applicant have any problem with that? I will put it as a condition if I'm going to move for approval.
Yeah, Mr. Sun?
Yep.
Okay, so transportation is asking to have the curbs restored. Is your client comfortable with that?
Yep, no problem.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have, you have anything further, Yim?
No?
Okay.
I'm ready to have a motion
Okay,
for approval.
go ahead.
I'd like to move for approval with the consent first, and they have to meet all the consent regulations and requirements. And then for 30B and C, there will be two conditions. The first one is to restore the driveway to the opposite driveway to soft landscaping, and also the staff report that the proposal will tie to the drawings that are submitted on December 24, 2019. And is there any urban forestry condition? I don't think so, right? And just, yeah, those are the two conditions.
Okay. There's, yeah, okay. Do we have a seconder?
Sure, I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you. (216) Seaton Street. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing three-story apartment building containing 6 dwelling units by constructing a rear third-story addition with rear second and third-story balconies and a rooftop terrace. And we have before us in this application material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from Heritage Preservation, and reports from Urban Forestry. We have correspondence in support from 117 Joycey Boulevard, 87 Leland Avenue, 757 Victoria Park Avenue, 8 Aragon Avenue, and 216 Seaton Street. 8 form letters in support from various addresses, and opposition from 199, 220, 184, 256, 260, 208, 222, 260, 224, 210, 210, Seaton Street, 237 Seaton Street as well, and from the Cabbagetown South Residents Association. Mr. Gupta, can we hear from you?
Hello, thank you. My name is Jayant Gupta. I'm with Evoke Architecture. If we can go to the new plans that we submitted in June. Okay, so 216 Seton Street is a 3-story brick and mortar apartment building built in 1909. There was a previous submission for a larger building in 2019. Evoke Architecture was brought on board after that previous Committee of Adjustment meeting. And our mandate is to rehabilitate and modernize the building and to provide for a redesigned 3-story addition to convert the 6 identical 574 square foot units into 6 family-sized units with private outdoor amenity spaces for each unit. In our proposal, there's no new units being added. The density remains the same. We're seeking 3 variances. The bylaws require that 50% of the lot be retained for landscaping. The revised proposal retains 48.9%, so we have a 1.1% variance there. The permitted maximum building depth for this property is 14 meters. We are, however, seeking a 24.92 meter building depth, as noted in our supplemental materials that we submitted on July 9th. This is in response to the planning staff recommendations for a building depth of 25 meters or less, and this is in the planning staff report on file. There's some precedents that we found for such building depths. For example, 234 Seton Street to the north, which was approved for 24.84 meters, and 202 Seton Street to the south, which was approved for 24.4 meters.
Okay,
The third variance is for the...
Mr. Gupta, our application says 25.03.
Yes, and yes, so our drawings did not indicate that, but the plans examiner measured it and somehow found 25.03 after our submission. So what we did is for our what we resubmitted, we said rather than debating this inch, we're just going to reduce our length by 3 inches to be well below the 25 meters. So in our resubmitted drawings, it's 24.92. And you can put a note on our file that we accept this reduced depth if you accept this variance.
Okay, so that's been filed with the committee?
Yeah, it's part of our supplementary materials. The site plan in our supplementary materials shows that we've reduced that building depth.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so the last variance is for the floor space index. The bylaws permit an FSI of 1.0. We're seeking an FSI of 1.18, and the reason for our variance is to effectively accommodate 6 family-sized units in the building. Looking at the site plan, there's several trees on the site. We're going to be maintaining the tree in the front yard. The 2 trees directly adjacent to the building foundation will be deleted. However, the 2 trees to the rear of the property, those are just beyond 6 meters of the revised proposal. So we're going to be protecting and preserving those. Now we can go on to the basement floor plan.
No.
The basement will be used exclusively for seasonal storage and utility rooms. The south side will be underpinned to address the slumping of the masonry on that wall, and no windows or doors are being added to the basement. The ground floor is indicative of a typical floor plan with bedrooms and bathrooms to the front and living space to the rear. The proposal adds a secondary exit staircase in the addition to bring the apartment into compliance with the current building code for apartment buildings. If we go to the second floor, you can see there's a second floor and the third floor. They're set back 3 feet and 5 feet respectively from the rear main wall of the ground floor to provide for larger private outdoor terraces for the units above. Now, under the guidance of the city planner, what we did is we extended the north and south walls of the building up to the building depth to provide privacy walls. And then for the balconies, we added privacy screens to the north and south to address privacy concerns for both the building tenants and for the neighbors. If we go up to the roof plan, there's a roof terrace that's proposed for the building on the addition, and there's a mechanical penthouse located there. This penthouse is located pretty far back from the street, so it won't be visible from the street. If we go to the roof plan, we're showing the rainwater collection on the next drawing, and this will all go down to a underground cistern that'll be located in the rear yard to provide additional stormwater retention on the site and also for irrigating the landscape.
All All right,
If we go to the front elevation.
Mr. Gupta, your time is up, so please just wrap up.
But I mean, we had this interaction during my time for about 2 minutes on the length of the building. Will you provide me 2 more minutes as a result?
No, we have a lot of opposition here. Please wrap up.
Okay, understood. Okay, so we can look at the Heritage Preservation Service report, which says that they have no issue with the proposal and that the building will be minimally visible from the public realm. In addition, we can skip over the front elevation, which is going to remain unchanged. On the side elevations, those large windows will have frosting up to 6 feet above the finished floor to provide privacy to the neighbors. And on the rear elevation, you can see that the entire back facade is glazed with glass balcony railings to provide unobstructed views to the backyard. So again, I just want to conclude.
Your time is up, sir.
Okay.
Okay, I have one question for you. The matter was deferred, I don't remember when it was, September or so, to consult with the neighbors. I think there were a lot of letters from the neighbors complaining that there was no consultation. So did you in fact consult with the neighbors?
I believe our client attempted to consult with some of the neighbors and did not, we're reporting back that didn't have a lot of success.
Okay,
thank you, sir. What we did is we just reduced the building by 5.5 meters from what the previous designer had proposed. So that was a 30.5 meter proposal. We went down to 25 meters and under 25 meters, and we conversed with the city planner in coming up with our proposal.
Okay, thank you. Does any member of the panel have any questions?
Yes, I have existing apartment types. Are they smaller or they are bachelor or just one bedroom?
They're really small. Actually, if we go to the supplemental materials and we go to third to last page, page 19 of the supplemental materials,
okay,
you'll see that the existing unit is 574 square feet. And they're very small. They're effectively 1 bedrooms. We mark it as 2 bedrooms, but one of those bedrooms is used as a living room, and the other one is a dining room. So it's 1 bedroom units, and so you can see below that in the drawing how we proposed, conceptually, how these new units will be used with 2 full bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and then a large living space that will really accommodate a family, plus a large patio in the back. So even on the 2nd and 3rd floor, families will have an amenity space that they feel welcome to use. And really, this is in line with the policies that the City of Toronto is trying to put forward to get more family units into these established neighborhoods.
I understand that. So all the smaller units, the current ones will be eliminated and replaced by larger ones. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, the smaller ones will be replaced by larger ones, one for one.
Yeah, okay. So what will happen to the current tenants? They can't afford renting a bigger space. Are they having? They're going to have to move out, I guess.
Yeah, that would be the case.
Okay.
Any further questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question relating to the step back. I didn't originally understand how much it was being stepped back on the 2nd and 3rd floor. It looks like not a lot. And there's a brick wall, so it does look like a solid building from the side.
So if we go, right. So if we go to the new plans and we go to the elevation, section page A300, the second to last page. So what happened in the earlier proposal from the other designer, the building was 30.5 meters with very large step backs. However, these step backs were completely open and looking into the neighbors' properties. So when we took over the design, we re-envisioned it. We envisioned a 24.92 meter depth for the building, but the wall goes completely to the roof. And then you can see that each unit is stepped back a little bit, 3 feet, 0.9 meters for the 2nd floor, and then 1.5 meters for the 3rd floor. And And so this provides for larger terraces. So the balconies are only projecting 5 feet. However, the overall the amenity space is 8 by 12 on the second floor, and I think 10 or 11 by 12 on the 11 by 12 on the third floor. And you can see that the wall continues right to the top on either side, and there's a privacy screen indicated next to the balcony.
Okay, so I guess from perspective of massing and impact on neighbors, it's going to read as a 25-meter deep building on 3 stories then, if I'm looking at the plans correctly.
In terms of the massing and the, yes, it will. In terms of the FSI, it's reduced.
You've also pointed out 2 other properties on Seton that are about 24.84 and 24.4 meters in depth. Are those also 3 stories of?
I understand. I believe that they might be. I think they're 2 stories. The depth was referred to us by the city planner, and then we did our own research to find which properties he would be speaking of. But they are multi-stories.
Because this is quite a big depth variance you're asking for, and often, in my experience, we see the depth step back significantly as the building gets higher. So it's just something I wanted you to touch upon. But thank you.
We work with the planner on this one quite a bit, actually, right into the new year, on working out what the depth should be and what the setbacks and the addition of the privacy screens, and that's how this got finalized.
All right. Does anybody have any further questions?
Can you just confirm how many units are going to be in the building?
6. Yeah. Is that correct, Mr. Gupta? 6 units?
6 units. It's 6 units now, and it will be 6 units when we're done.
Okay, thank you. Now, can we hear from David Haas?
Hello, my name is David Haas. I live at 117 Joycey Boulevard, and
can you speak up, sir? We're having trouble hearing you. Pardon?
Yeah. So I'll try and speak louder. I'm supporting this application, and the reason why I'm happy with it is this renovation and addition, which to me saves what is good as far as the look and the feel of this neighborhood, and it replaces what is bad. So this is a 110-year-old building that's a bit of a dinosaur. It has obsolete systems and infrastructure. What I like about this investment and design is it takes this 110-year-old building that has sort of extended beyond its useful life and rejuvenates it. It provides a modern infrastructure to make the building much more livable at the end of the day. It, as Jay mentioned, it saves the facade and the look and feel of the Victorian building from the front. The entire envelope and openings are unchanged in the existing building, and none of the addition is visible from Seton Avenue. One of the things I would like to just pick up on the conversation a little bit earlier is the building is a 2-story structure from Seton on the front of the building. The topography is that the backyard slides away a little bit. And so while it's a 2-story building from the front, from the backyard, it looks like a 3-story building, so that the ground changes a little bit. So the addition is all in the rear, and that addition, as you've identified earlier, takes small sort of 500-foot units that have a single bedroom, that are really hot without air conditioning in the summer and really cool in the winter. They are uninsulated right now and only have single panes. So all these elements are going to be changed and improved to make it more livable and attractive for more sophisticated tenants going forward. I like that the renovation is green. My sister is the owner of this building, and she's a professional engineer, and she takes the resource and energy efficiency very seriously. He's very keen to put geothermal and or the use of heat pumps in this building to dramatically reduce the energy consumption. And Jay talked about the cisterns for water collection. That's very, very innovative. Neither of these elements are required, but both make it very, very good for our environment. and both make me as a Torontonian and a property owner characterize this as both desirable and appropriate for the neighborhood. As far as talking to the scale, to me, it's within the norms. The proposed depth parallels several existing single-family homes in the neighborhood, and it meets the City of Toronto planner requirements for 25 meters, which again, if you go 2 houses directly next door to the building, is exactly what they're at. The backyards are large, and they remain large after this. The existing building is unusually shallow, and adding the depth, again, is only in the backyard. If any of you are familiar with the location of this, there is there's no visibility of the addition in the front. In the backyard is a laneway, and the laneway has 4 6-story apartment buildings directly behind it. And so the mass is very, very big directly behind everybody on the west side of Seton. So the added mass to this thing is really nothing in comparison compared to the immediate neighbors. And so I'm talking very quickly. And I guess one of the things that I would like to identify, and I think I feel remiss in not saying.
All right, you have 40 seconds, Mr. Haas.
Okay, the neighbor support for this thing is, I'd like to comment for a second. Jill has documented her outreach to all her neighbors. She has 24 letters of support. She has reached out to her MPP Morrison. She has spent time with her city councilman, Christine Ming Tan, and so has worked very hard. She has communicated with 40 different individuals on Seton. And the interesting thing about that is the neighbors have been, in many respects, refused to be civil. And much of that has to do with the vigil.
Your time is up,
Okay.
Mr. Haas. We'll hear from the opposition. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Haas? No questions. Mr. Carey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I live at 216 Seton. I'm one of the tenants that the landlord would be seeking to remove as part of the renovations to the building. I should say the building is the same height back and front. It's a 3-story building. It's because the first floor is sunken, it actually looks like 2.5 stories. It's higher than any of its neighbors because of that already. I was here at the last meeting in September. And at that point, the Committee of Adjustments suggested to Ms. Haas that the building was in proportion to the neighborhood, that she should come back with revisions, and that the revisions should be more than just cosmetic. So what do we have? She's pulled in the footprint of the buildings. The footprint extends less far into the backyard than it did before, but she's also extended the rooftop. So the original plan was terraced. The new plan is not terraced. The rooftop measure extends into the backyard about 5 or perhaps the patio's 10 feet further into the backyard than it did before. So it's a much more imposing structure than it was before. It dominates the backyards more than it did before. She's also added a fourth floor structure, a kind of cabana on the rooftop. So that makes the overall height of the building higher. It dominates the neighborhood. Other buildings aren't that high along that street. If you look at the letters of support, you have, and letters against, all the neighbors on either side are against the proposition. 3 houses to the north, 220, 222, 224 have all filed letters of opposition. The 2 houses immediately to the south, 210, 208 have filed letters of opposition. The Neighborhood Association has filed letters of opposition, as have several other people on the block. None of the letters of support, with one exception that I'll get to, come from anybody in the area. The letters of support all come from people who live in Etobicoke, who live in Leaside, who live way out in East York and away from it. Many of them, I pointed out in my letter, 2 of them were cookie cutter. They were exactly the same letter with just different signatures. After I pointed that out and made my submissions, 2 more cookie cutter letters of exactly the same wording came in. All the neighbors in their submissions, none of them say that Jill has reached out to them about the project. They all, many of them say she is not. There was a mention that she's removing 2 trees in the backyard. Actually, the plan would involve removing 4 trees, 2 trees that are directly where the construction would take place, 2 that are so close that according to the arborist's report, they would have to be removed. They couldn't survive. The one letter of support from the neighborhood comes from Marion Haas, who is the applicant's mother. She moved in as part of a project to evict tenants for own use. She came in about, I believe, in February. I should point out that there's a photograph attached to a report that suggests there's no privacy in the backyard already, so the loss of the trees wouldn't make a difference. In fact, that photograph was taken early in the spring before there are any leaves on the trees. It omits the trunks of 2 trees that would be on either side of the photograph outside the area. Like right now, you have a lot of privacy in the backyard, a lot of tree cover, both for this property and for the neighbors because the trees are on the property line. So in summary, this is not a minor adjustment. If I've summarized some of the history of the landlord's interactions with the tenants since they bought it, she clearly came in buying the property 2 years ago, intending to make major changes to the property. She told the tenants originally that she was going to make those major changes. She described it at one point as demolition of the property when she issued notices to the tenants saying it's evicting for demolition. She's now calling it renovations, but there's still renovations that require everybody to move out of the building for an extended period of time. She's doubling the mass and size of the building. Essentially, she's putting a building the same size as the existing one into the backyard.
20 seconds, Mr. Carey. Please wrap up.
It's already the highest house on the block. It's wider than the official plan allows, so it's already exceeding what it should be. And this is only going to make it worse and dominate the neighborhood. It's not a minor revision, it's a major change.
Okay. Mr. Carey, are you living in the building now?
Yes, I am.
All right. What about the other tenants?
There's 2 other tenants who are currently living there, and the landlord and her mother each have a unit as well.
Okay.
There's a 6th unit that's vacant now.
All right. Did the owner or the owner's agent discuss the changes with you after the deferral hearing in September?
No, there was no effort made to reach out to me, no discussion whatsoever.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any further questions of Mr. Carey? Okay. Mr. Bragg?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
I'm assuming you can hear me. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. It's late in the day. Jill has not reached to me with regard to the changes. We exchanged pleasantries as we passed, but apart from that, the only 2 conversations have been, one, she complained about the exhaust vent from my house. I spent $500, had it redirected. Last week, she complained that the water from my spout was seeping into her basement. I did a test with a hose, and it didn't, but I have now ordered a rain barrel to mitigate that problem for her, but I'm sure there was no problem. This extension is huge. My wife and I like to sit on the deck in the summertime, and it's warm enough here from May onwards, on the weekends to read the morning papers in our pajamas. We won't be able to do that again. Those trees that are going to be removed, 4 of them, offer such a beautiful canopy and a muffler for the noise that's in the center of the city. You can't avoid that. But the privacy that we're losing, the windows, first I hear that the windows will be frosted, but only to a certain height. But the 4th floor terrace is not going to be frosted. The resident association has been behind myself and other neighbors who were not happy with this, but there has been no discussion whatsoever. They're happy that they reduced the length of the building, which was going to be almost twice as big as it was. but they they shortened it, but then went up to 40 feet. So I'm not terribly happy. I thank you very much for your attention and your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Bragg? No questions? All right. Ms. English, Mr. Stathopoulos.
Hi there. Am I off?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. My name is Tanya English, and I'm an owner at 208 Seton Street and 256 Seton Street. 208 is the second house south of 216. I have lived here for over 30 years, and my husband was born at 208, so over 50 years. We're very committed to this community. I'll also be wearing two hats to this objection, one in a personal view as a neighbor, and secondly, as an executive member of the Cabbagetown South Residents Association. So first off, I want to correct the designer. Jill did not reach out to a single person on Seton Street, nor did she reach out to the Cabbagetown Residents Association. So I'd like to note that lie. Secondly, the community planning did not support this application. The staff report on file is the fall hearing when the rear main wall on the previous plan was not to this height. And the 25-meter houses that were noted earlier are only 1 story at the back. So I'd like those corrections made to the designer's conversation earlier. First off, I want to say that this plan is not a minor variance, basically almost doubling in mass. Adding to this, from the original deferral given to the owner, she was directed to consult with the neighbors and make substantive changes, not cosmetic, because of the concerns of the neighborhood. Both of these conditions were not met, as documented in the CSRA letter. As I'm new to this, what's the impact of the applicant not or negating these particular directives? That's a question to the committee.
Who's the question to?
To the committee. So she was given a deferral to come back, to speak to the neighborhood, and to redo a plan with substantive changes that has not happened. So my question to you guys is, why are we here? Why are we having this discussion when she didn't meet those these directives?
Okay, well, we'll take that up in our when we make our decision. So just carry on with your impact statement, please.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so I want also those letters that are not from the neighborhood to bear no weight because they're not going to be impacted if a precedent is set. On a personal side, the issues of privacy of the extension, the windows looking on to others' backyard, the shadowing of the north properties, the tree canopy impact with the lack of noise. And the fourth-story terrace is non-existent in Cabbagetown, but will add excess noise and further impacts privacy. We talked about, the designer talked about earlier being a 25-meter building with no mitigation or reduction in side yard setback is not typical, and especially not for all 3 stories. In respect to the scale to the other houses, there was no drawings to put a comparison to that building's with all the houses around it, which is, for me is would have been nice to see that, to see how big this is compared to everyone on either side of this house. In respect to the property, my property at 256, which is my principal residence, it's allowed, it sets a precedent so that any other house could do the same 3-story setback, 3-story monolith. And I have a boxed house beside me at 256 that then would give the impact that Peter at 220 has, with no lightness back. His 5 hours of light turns into 1 hour with the new building shadow diagram, and that's just absolutely unacceptable.
25 seconds, Ms. English.
And as I put on the CSR hat, Capitown South is an impacted neighborhood. It's very important to keep the historic nature, and the master plan does not keep in with the look and feel, and nor does it keep families staying who happen to be beside this large building. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the panel have any questions? No questions? Okay. Karen Marin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, great. Hi.
Hello? Did we lose her? Miss Marin?
Karen, you should be unmuted. I don't know if you've maybe done something with your microphone. What we can do is we can, I'll mute you from the meeting and I'll give you a call on the phone number that we have registered with you, and you can speak through that. So just stay put and I'll give you a call.
Hello?
You're back?
Hello? You can hear me now?
Yes?
Oh, great. So my name's Karen, and I'm the president of the Cabochon South Residents Association. I just live like literally almost across the street on the next block at 342 Ontario Street. We're a very active residents association. We've done flyer drops to 216 seats, and with our email, with our website, join for free, get our newsletter. I've not heard from her. And I check that email hourly because lots of things are happening at Sherbourne and Dundas. So there's two things I want to add and not repeat what anybody else said. There was a picture in Peter Bragg's presentation sort of mimicking how big that 25-foot wall is going to look from his backyard. And I'm wondering if you could call that up. There it is there, that bottom picture. So when Peter was sitting on his back, this is what he's going to see. So this is the massing of that new proposed building without any step backs. Also, there was a shadow study provided just lately in the last week or so. And Peter's light in his backyard, just the way the sun sets, he will have maybe 1 hour of sunlight in his backyard compared to the 4 or 5 hours he has now. What else? Going back to an early discussion, because I've been sitting listening as many other people was, if you look at the property, if the owner wants to increase the property's value or tenants, this is the prime location for a laneway house. If you go to that plan view that has all the houses, and you can see there's an existing garage there in the back. She could put a two-story house back there and not evict any tenants, have 2 units there, and she'd have 5 units instead of she'd have 7 units instead of just 6. So there is an opportunity for her to expand the income coming from this property. And I guess that's it, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, let's go back to Mr. Gupta.
Okay, so thank you. I want to comment on a few things. The discussion on the trees, the arborist report is based on the 30.5 meter length of the building and outlines that with a 6 meter distance, those trees can be preserved. With the reduced building depth, those trees are outside of the 6 meter distance, and the owner has indicated to us they will be protected and preserved. They're part of the backyard that she wants to keep. Before she couldn't. now with the new design, she can, and she intends to. Regarding the comment on the side yard, it's not an item that we're seeking a variance on. We're complying to the bylaws regarding the side yard setback of the addition. Regarding the depth and the height, now the original proposal had a depth of 30.54 meters. Our proposal has 24.92 meter depth. So there is a substantial reduction since the previous submission for the depth of the building. Regarding the height, as part of the proposal, we increased the height of the top unit slightly to be able to bring in more light and such. If that's really a concern for the committee, I think that we would be open to reducing that. Same thing, the terrace on the roof was an addition since the previous submission, and it was something that we as the architect proposed. However, if there's a contest by the committee for having this terrace, the owner is prepared to delete the terrace from the design. In regards to the comment on the historic nature, we have a report from the Heritage Preservation Services of the City of Toronto that say that they have no problem with this design. They say that the addition will be minimally visible from the street. And in terms of the character of our design, we're at the schematic stage. We're really working out getting these variances. And as we develop the design, it will definitely evolve into something with more character. However, currently it's the modernist massing of the site. Now, regarding the length of the building, we have privacy walls that are extending to the full depth of the building. We can reduce those and change those to screens. We have those walls and those privacy screens as part of our discussion with the city planner. The length of the third floor, the actual enclosed length of the third floor, remains pretty much the same as the last submission. On the last submission, it was 23.2 meters. In the new submission, that floor got a little bit longer at 23.4 meters, so 8 inches. However, the second floor got a lot smaller, and the third floor, the ground floor definitely got a lot smaller than the previous submission. Regarding the Sun study, our review of the Sun study came up with slightly different results. We found that the rear yard of 220 Seton, and if you look at the drawings that we submitted for the Sun study back in March or April, the 220 Seton presently remains virtually unshaded at the equinox from 1:18 p.m. onward. The proposed addition reduces that a complete unshaded time from about 4:18 onward. So there's about 3 hours of additional time when the yard has some shade. So then we looked at when the yard is approximately 25% shaded. And what we found is that from 11:18 onwards in the existing condition, the yard is unshaded, only 25% shaded. And with the addition, we found that the yard would be about 25% shaded from 2:18 onwards. So again, there's a big part of the day that the property receives light. And I mean, this is part of the just trying to create family-sized units within the neighborhood. We have to have a longer building. The units that we're proposing are
40 seconds, Mr. Gupta.
Yeah, sure. The units we're proposing are about 900 square feet, 950 square feet. Now, regarding the tenants, there's presently one tenant that is staying. There's one tenant that is two tenants that are supposed to be moving out on July 31st, is what we're told. And the reason, aside from the addition, the building needs a major rehabilitation. We're going to be replacing the entire mechanical and electrical systems, insulating all the walls, which are currently uninsulated 2-wide brick masonry.
Your time is up, Mr. Gupta.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, does anyone have any questions of Mr. Gupta? Okay, we're in committee. Do you have any comments? All right, the first thing is that this application was deferred because the applicant said she wanted to confer with the neighbors, and although it didn't appear, I looked back on the deferral notes, and it didn't appear that it was an actual condition, but that was her request to defer, to consult with the neighbors. There was a big contingent here, as I remember it. I would, I would consider taking the position that she didn't consult with the neighbors. That's why we have so many people here opposing it, and why Mr. Gupta is trying to make changes on the fly to accommodate the neighbors. If they had met with the neighbors before, we wouldn't have had this contentious proceeding. So I think we should consider, as part of our considerations for a decision, whether we're going to dismiss the application, refuse the application because there was no consultation with the neighbors. I mean, that's why we gave a deferral. Try and shorten our time with this.
If I wouldn't mind saying a few words on this one. I originally sat on the panel when this came to the committee before, when it was a larger building, and I have to say I'm extremely disappointed that the applicant did not consult with the neighbors. There was a large amount of neighbor objection the first time this came around, so just in a matter of doing her due diligence, you would think she would consult. That was something I recall being a comment made when we agreed to the deferral, that there would be, hopefully, I mean, we can't force the neighbor to consult, but that we would think that it would be in the applicant's interest to consult with the neighbors. So I'm very disappointed that didn't happen. But notwithstanding that, looking at the current application and the changes made, I still am I'm of the view that this is a large addition. They're asking for a depth variance of 25.03 meters on the, make sure I got that right, on the actual notice. I know the agent has said it's slightly less. And one of the reasons I asked and the agent has pointed that there is 2 other properties along Seton that have depths of similar nature. Often, in my experience sitting on the committee, when we see such a large depth variance, we see or at least I would like to see a dramatic step back in terms of upper floors. This is a 3-story building, and while I think the step back proposed is minimal at best. I think we heard the agent say that the 3rd floor is going to be, I think I noted 23.4 meters. I find that to be a very minimal step back. And in any event, I think with the fact that it's being boxed in to box in the balconies, I think this is going to be a large mass of a building. I think the impact, in my view, is unacceptable on the adjacent neighbors to have such a large building adjacent to them. I mean, there is a depth provision in the bylaw of 14 meters, and this is, in my view, well in excess of that, without any mitigating factors that, as I spoke about step back.
I will have a couple of comments too. I think that, of course, we recommend them to consult the tenants and neighbors, but of course we cannot really control what they do. But I think that the tenants in this case is a major stakeholder. If we allow this big extension, particularly in the depth, you're asking for almost 11 meters more. And I thought that if we allow that, we will get something back. In terms that I think in city, in the downtown area, often that the tendency is to have smaller affordable units. But in this case, it's actually it's not the case, and I find that it's actually nothing gained in terms of the community. And when you look at what they're asking, is a lot but very little give feedback to the community. And I agree with Lisa. And in that light, I think the extension is too big. And I'm really concerned that the current tenants will not be able to afford staying there at all. Because it's twice as big, the apartment, maybe 3 times more expensive.
All really good. I will admit, I love 3-story walk-ups in existing residential neighborhoods. I think they're the absolute major contributor to the vitality and accommodation, and particularly rental in areas where need. I had a similar kind of perspective on this as Jim did, and that is this really isn't increasing the residential stock. It is, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's adding 2 bedrooms to a neighborhood where existing 1 bedrooms are. But if you are sympathetic to the view that we don't have enough residential or rental accommodation in this city, particularly in existing neighborhoods, I'm not sure that this particular proposal solves or addresses that issue at all. That's beyond our committee's mandate, I will admit. But I was struck by a couple things. One, all of the letters in support, I think one of the applicants made this point, and I think it's quite a valid one. I noticed it when I went through all of the letters, is that they are scattered across Toronto. And while we appreciate all Torontonians' views on these matters, these folks have really no skin in the game in this neighborhood. So I don't take those letters of support or even the representation that was made today by the supporter necessarily as strongly as I do to those who have views that are immediately affected. And that I'd even include the Residents Association. I mean, I appreciate them representing the views of the neighbors, but they're doing what they do best. I am convinced a little bit by the immediate and adjacent neighbors who are concerned about the impact. And Lisa makes some really good points about how this came in front of the committee before, and the revised proposals seem to fall short, I think, of what the committee was expecting when they first heard this and when they asked for a recommended deferral. I was encouraged by the agent's offer to make some changes. I would agree with the chair that why weren't these done before? I mean, if they're good changes, why wouldn't you have sat down with the affected neighbors and had a discussion about these? And maybe we wouldn't be here today having a contest application. So for all those reasons, I think I would agree with everyone that this is, at this point, this proposal isn't something I think we can and should support.
Would you make a motion, Larry?
Sure, I'll make a motion to refuse this application.
Seconder? Lisa? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Application is refused. "15 Glen Oak Drive. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story detached house by converting the integral garage into habitable space and constructing a front first and second-story addition. A front yard parking space will also be constructed. We have in support of this application material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from Right-of-Way Management, Region Conservation Authority, reports from Urban Forestry and Ravine and Natural Feature Protection and Region Conservation Authority, and support from 230 Glen Manor Drive West, 12 Glen Oak Drive, 13 form letters in support from 29, 8, 9, 10, 16, 19, 26, and 28 Glen Oak Drive, and 5 Glen Oak Drive. and 14 and 18 and 22 Glen Oak Drive and 8 Glen Oak Drive. One of them, that was, yeah, well, we had 8 Glen Oak before. Opposition from 17 Glen Oak Drive. Mr. Franklin.
Yes, hi.
Hi, could we hear from you, please?
Would you like me to make a presentation?
Well, very short.
Sure, I will. First off, there are 3 variances. I'd like to speak briefly to each of the 3, and then I also want to talk about community consultation. The FSI issue, as I indicated in our summary submission, the last year the TRCA introduced a new designation for a regulated area in this neighborhood, which occupies essentially the majority of the rear yards for almost every property along the south side of Glen Oak. If I could have drawing E2, please, from our set. One of the consequences of that redesignation is that the calculation of the FSI has changed quite substantially. As we note in our letter, the proposal, this same proposal, had we made this proposal last year, would have had an FSI of 0.36. But because of the designation of TRCA, it currently has an FSI of 0.68. The top of bank line is that sort of hatched swervy line that runs through the middle of the site plan. On drawing A2.1, we've summarized the impact of the TRCA redesignation on our proposals, but also on a number of the adjacent properties nearby. The FSI that we're asking for is extremely consistent with FSIs that would be calculated the same way on existing properties along the south side of Glen Oak. So we've given you 15 Glen Oak, 37 Glen Oak, 9 Glen Oak, 11 Glen Oak, and 17 Glen Oak as a way of demonstrating that the FSI that we're asking for is in fact quite consistent with other properties along the street. We've also provided for your benefit there the floor areas of those dwellings because they vary quite broadly. This is a very diverse housing stock. It's not a uniform neighborhood in the sense that the buildings are all of one typology. So our sense is that notwithstanding the FSI looks like a big number, if it's measured consistent with all the other properties, it's in fact right dead center with what most of the other properties in the neighborhood already have. If I can speak to front yard setback, on this drawing you can see the additions that are made. One of the requirements that flows out of the TRC redesignation is you're not allowed to build new construction within 10 meters of the top bank, and the 10-meter line cuts through the middle of 15. It also cuts through 17, and to some extent it impacts many of the properties. What that does is it forces or encourages anybody who wants to build additions to their property to construct them to the front, which is what we've done. We built modest additions to the front side of the existing dwelling. And that has the effect of altering the front yard setbacks. As you can see from this tight little site plan, you can see that the property line is not parallel with front line of the building. And so what we've done is we've staggered the building envelope, as many of the buildings along this street do. They're offset. They're not a linear planar facade. We submitted a mapping study with our summary letter that outlines what the front yard setbacks actually are for many of the properties along Glen Oak in proximity to this one. And they vary from 3 meters, 2.28 meters, some are at 4.6, some are at 3.3, we're at 3.27. So again, we feel that many of those, that the front yard setback, while they're irregular, the numbers are quite varied as you go down the street, that the front yard setback that we're requesting is consistent. If you want to have a look at A8, which is the front elevation on parking, I just want to anecdotally observe that many of the photographs that are in this submission that people don't park in their garages. Most garages are too small, and so we're asking to allow front yard parking in this case so we can build additions for living space for the house. Consultation, we consulted with our neighbors several times. We've made changes to the drawings to respond to their concerns and requests. We think the letters of support, the number of the letters of support reflect the outreach to the neighborhood. We've met numerous times with TRCA. We've met with Ravine. We've met with urban forestry, and we've satisfied all of their requests.
10
we are
seconds,
ready
Mr.
to-
Franklin.
I'm finished. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, can we go into committee? Any comments? Or do we have a motion?
I'll just comment. I actually think the homeowner should be commended. I think you've done some really hard work in response to your previous proposal and the fact that you can't go out your backyard. I thought when I was reading through the material, you guys have done a really good, comprehensive job of justifying, of explaining what you wanted to do, why you wanted to do it. I think the proposed addition is quite modest and quite in keeping with the facade. Looks really good in the streetscape. Lots of support, lots of consultation. I will note that the one letter of objection was the same fellow who objected when you were proposing something for the backyard, so I just don't think he wants you to do anything to your house. So I just think this is one of those situations where the process has worked. You guys have gone back to the drawing board, done the work, done really good work, and came up with a pretty good proposal that, frankly, I'm quite prepared to support.
Okay, any other comments, or do we have Larry make a motion? Okay, make a motion, Larry.
I'm happy to make a motion. This is, I'll make, move approval of this application subject to urban forestry condition number 2. Yep, number 2.
Yes, seconder.
I will second that, yeah.
Who seconded? Yim? Okay, all in favor?
Yeah, it's me.
You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
(16) St. Joseph Street. The purpose of this application my computer went conflooey. To alter the existing 4-story 37-unit apartment building by converting the storage area and servicing rooms on the first floor into 5 additional dwelling units, 3 one-bedroom units and 2 two-bedroom units. The south and north entrances will also be altered. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, reports from community planning, urban forestry, heritage preservation, opposition from several tenants in the building, and the Bay Clover Hill Community Association. Mr. Paul, can we hear from you, sir?
You can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. So this proposal is, there are 5 items on the list that we're seeking a variance on, 2 of which are the same item. The first thing, the FSI is 2.4 times the area of the building, which is essentially the same FSI as it is now. I'm not sure why it had to be a variance by the zoning examiner. However, it is a change of use from being ancillary rooms to being residential apartment units. The second one about the amenity space, well, it's an existing older heritage type building that did not initially have any amenity space, and we don't have room to provide it. The third one is about landscaping, and it's an existing building. There's no room to add additional landscaping, although we are putting some minor landscaping at each one of the entrances along the laneway. And then the final 2 are caused by the building of these 5 units requires 3 parking spaces. And those are the the variances that we're asking for relief on. We have support, the planning report is in support of our proposal. And the fact that we're improving the laneway is an initiative that is something that the planning department and the City of Toronto very much wants to be done. It'll make the laneway safer, better to look at, and better for everyone involved. There's a heritage report. We have had a heritage report prepared already, and it's ready to be submitted. It's done by a heritage consultant who is qualified under the rules of the City of Toronto, and they are in favor of the development, and we will negotiate with the Heritage Department in order to make sure that that is all in order and make any adjustments that are necessary. We've also improved, not just that the landscape along the laneway will be improved, we intend to improve the landscaping on both St. Joseph Street and Irwin Street. And as you can see in the drawings, the intent is to improve the entrances at both street frontages of the building. We will abide with the forestry department's requirements to not do harm to the trees and to make them safe. With respect to the tenants, we've had a few meetings with them along the way. We've even had a mediator attend, and we thought that it was quite a positive meeting, but unfortunately you can't get everyone in the building to say that what we're doing is for the best. Although we believe it is an improvement to the building. It's not making the building any bigger than it was, and it's providing additional rental housing accommodation. I believe I'll leave it to you we'll get comments and then we can do a rebuttal if necessary.
All right, Mr. Paul, just one question. On your previous application, it said 0 additional parking spaces. That to me meant it only applies, that provision only applies to the 5 new units. In other words, you still have other parking spaces servicing the existing units. Is that correct?
No, there are no parking spaces on the property at this time.
Okay. So, but these 3, okay, that's fine. Any other questions?
It's how the bylaw is written. I mean, it's only relates in this case to new units. It doesn't relate to the deficiency that previously existed. That's how the building was built in 1926 with no park, it had parking, but the parking doesn't meet the requirements of today, and it hasn't been parking for a while. The structures, they're not sized to meet parking requirements. We made this all clear to the zoning examiner when he did his review.
Scott, if I might just ask a question at this point, because it leads to a question that I have. Where are they big enough for parking? But I think you've answered that question. No, they're not in fact big enough for parking. And what are they currently being used as, or what have they been used as in the?
They're not. Most of it is not being used as anything because the structure is ready to fall apart. There are jack stands holding it up in place. It's if you can't use it for anything at this time, and it hasn't been. It's been in this condition longer than Achilles has owned the property.
Okay, they have the storage. Nothing along that line then.
No, it's not in condition to use for anything. Sorry, I didn't add a picture. And you would have to rebuild the entire thing regardless because the wood framing is rotten and needs to be taken down and replaced.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Yes, I have one question. There's some mention of or provide some kind of bicycle stands. have you thought about that?
Okay, so there are bicycle storage for the new units. In each unit, they have their bicycle storage. There's temporary bicycle storage being added at both the Irwin Street and St. Joseph Street on our site plan. And we are, the owners of the property are, and I should mention some other things that they're going to try to do. The owners are going to try to work with the tenants to figure out a way of putting in secure bicycle storage on the west side of the property that outside of the confines of the actual building enclosure. And they want to work with the tenants in order to figure out the best way to do that. There is property on the west side, and it's a matter of making sure that it's secure, that people can't climb over fences, and they can't get away with bikes. And that the bikes are put into a storage that's appropriate. While you're mentioning that, Achilles, the owners, are also in the process of upgrading the building in various ways. They've been repointing the outside of the book, the brickwork on the building, which has led to some conflict with the tenants. And for this project, when this starts, they will be putting forth a construction plan and making sure that the tenants are aware of when things are happening and when noise will take place. They will try to mitigate that the noise will not be or vibrations at times that will not affect the tenants as adversely. They'll try to limit what they can do. Construction's not perfect, but they will do their best to limit how much is going to happen in that case. They are also going to be, with the development, the garbage will be improved from what it is now, garbage removal, and the present laundry room is going to be relocated and enhanced. There is a building permit in with the city about that right now.
All right. Any further questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Renee Paulet?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Renee is not present. We don't have a phone number for them. I'm not sure if they wanted to speak in opposition or support of this application. They didn't specify.
So have you got Howard Druckman on?
Yes, we do.
Okay, Mr. Druckman?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, hi. I'm Howard Druckman. I live at 16 St. Joseph Street, apartment 33, and I have lived here for 39 years. I just want to let you know, I think that may be a Toronto record. I also want to say that I have a great respect for the stamina of the Committee of Adjustment members. I've only been here since 1 on and off. You've been here since 9:30 all day, so thank you for being here and for staying this late. I wanted to, before I get into issues, just refute some of what Mr. Paul was saying. He is saying that there has never been parking in the building. This is absolutely not true. I've been here for 39 years. I know that about 2 landlords ago, before Starlight and Greenwind, those spaces absolutely were used for parking and certainly can be. So the fact that he's saying that they are not usable for parking is simply not true. Or too small for parking is simply not true. He also said that, sorry, I'm just trying to get a sense of that there's no storage in the building. For many, many, many years, we did have storage in the building. And they're taking this away with the units that they're building. So we do not have any storage. Basically, no bike storage for sure. There are 3 issues. We went to the Committee of Adjustment meeting last October 23rd of 2019, and then we had a mediation meeting on December 4th, and now we're here again. That was our request. And the mediation was at our request. And
Mr. Druckman, we want to hear from you. We don't want to hear from whoever else is with you. So please ask them to just let you speak. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Thank you. So the three basic issues are car parking and bicycle parking. I'll get to the third in a minute. Just let me say something about car parking. Parking on St. Joseph Street is already so rare that even with a street parking permit and at off-peak parking hours, tenants have to circle the block 3 or 4 times to wait for a space to open up or pay for parking elsewhere over and above the cost of their parking permit, their street parking permit, if a space doesn't open up. Requesting no parking spaces while increasing the density of the building by 20% diminishes the ability of car driving tenants to park their cars easily, conveniently, and safely. I also have a letter from the BC CA, but you may not want to go into that. They're basically just backing that, saying that they requested at a minimum the applicant provide 3 on-site vehicle parking spaces for the use of the tenants. Bicycle parking, yes, we agree. There should be bicycle parking. There are at least 15 bicycle spots. We should hold a minimum of 15 bicycle spots. They've agreed to security cameras. They've agreed to have a bicycle, but we need either a shed or a very high fence, because basically putting the bicycles out there is just an invitation for people to rob them. There have been a lot of bicycles robbed in this neighborhood. Mine personally was robbed after one night on the street when I took it out of storage just a few weeks ago. Basically a well-lit space with a bike rack and bikes outside that is not protected by shed is simply an invitation for theft. I'd also like to point out that my fellow tenant, Philip Ottenbright, also mentioned something that during mediation, they talked about bicycle storage, but they only sit outside the building, and it's an unsafe neighborhood with a high rate of bike theft. We emphasize this in our follow-up communications, and Achilles said it's law enforcement's responsibility to ensure the neighborhood security and prevent theft. We know from hard experience, many people in the building know from hard experience, that the police do nothing about bike theft. It's too small on their list of things to do, and I understand that. I just want to ask, is it possible, is it under the purview of the committee to speak to construction conditions? I'm not talking about dust and noise. I'm talking about issues that affect the safety of the tenants.
No, we don't have any authority over construction.
Okay, the conditions are deplorable, but I'll take that up somewhere else.
Is that it, sir?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Druckmann? Okay, I'll go back to Mr. Paul.
So we did say that Achilles will work with the tenants in order to come up with a secure way of providing bike storage. And they are committed to that. I did speak to them before today in preparation for this meeting. So that is the intention. And I don't know how you put that into a committee ruling. It isn't even part of the variance, but it is their intention to do that.
Okay. You have anything else, Mr. Paul?
Not with respect to what he said. I said it myself in a different way, obviously.
Yep. Okay. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Paul?
Yes, I have a small one. Going back to the bicycle storage, has there any mention of how many are you going to provide? At least minimum one for each unit?
Mr. Paul?
I can't hear what you're saying. I'm sorry.
He wants to know how many bicycle storage units you're going to provide. One for each tenant, or what number?
Well, it's not a variance requirement. We
understand that.
Yes, and we will work with them. We'll plan out what we can do. It obviously needs to be secure. I don't want Howard to lose his bike. Nobody wants him to lose his bike. We want to make it as secure as possible, and we will engage some people who know a lot more about bike storage than myself to assist with that process.
All right. Any further questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Paul.
No, I do. It's hard for me to unmic or unmute. Sorry. Storage. You have mentioned, or it looks like based on the floor plans, the proposed, what they're as garages now are being removed. Is there currently, it looks like also from the floor plan that there's some indoor storage being removed. Is that correct? Or how is that going to be, is it being used, and how is that going to be accommodated for?
Well, presently it is not being used, and it's being, it's part of the units that are being designed, that we designed for the building. So that modest amount of storage is now going to become part of these 5 units, these 5 rental accommodation units.
I understand that, but is it currently being used for tenant storage?
There was nothing, when I walked through the building, there was no formal storage in the space. It's not set up for lockers at this point or anything of that nature. Just vacant rooms at this point.
Was it made accessible to tenants at some point, or just, just empty space?
I cannot answer for previous owners of the property. Since Achilles has owned the property, there has not been any formal storage use of those pieces.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, or can we go into committee? All right, thank you, Mr. Paul. We're now in committee. Any comments, or do we have a motion?
I do have a comment about the bicycle storage. I still have trouble understanding how many they're going to provide. You know why? Because they're actually taking away parking spots. So I thought that in lieu of that, we can get at least some security about bicycle storage. Because with many recent residential development, that is almost like a prerequisite that you will provide certain number of secure bicycle storage. Without getting a real answer from him, I do not know how to make decision on this, because they actually put in new units, which is like increase their investment, but they will not provide at least a minimum of secure bicycle storage, and I find it troublesome.
Well, it doesn't appear to be a variance.
And I do not know how to go. It's not, but the give and take. If I support you to pay, you probably will, I will expect certain things that will be beneficial to the building or to the tenants. That's one of the reasons why it got deferred, and one of the reasons that this is one of the major concerns of the tenants, that because a lot of the storage was taken away, but then at least the bicycle storage, they would like to have some of them being secured for the. I don't think that during all this deferred time that you have come up with a solution for that.
So some of what Mr. Paul says resonates with me with respect particularly to parking and storage, because I at one point rented some space in an older apartment building, and I had trouble getting my car in and out and damaging it on occasion because of parking in a building that was erected in the early 1900s or so was not suitable for parking. So I can understand why they're not providing parking spaces in this building. I don't know about storage, but it's probably the same kind of thing, that it's not really suitable. So and bicycle parking, I don't know why. You're right, it was on the last application and seemed to be a requirement, but it doesn't seem to be a requirement anymore. So I don't know why that is. But it's not a variance requested at this point, so I don't know that it's appropriate for us to consider bicycle storage. Any other comments, or do we have a motion?
I have no comments, Chair.
Do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll kick it off just to get things started. If people are concerned about it, they can reflect that in their vote. I have no problems. In fact, I know this area quite well. I worked there for 30 years, close by. It's in high demand for rental. I think the addition of additional rental accommodation in this particular part of the city is appropriate. We need more of that. And I think the proposal seems quite right for, and I agree with you on parking. So I will move approval subject to urban forestry number 1, heritage conditions. And I think there was a planning staff report that talked about landscaping and lighting. The agent, just a question to the agent, have you seen all those reports?
Mr. Paul?
Seen the report. Yeah, yes, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that we have engaged a landscape architect, and once hopefully you approve this, we will then enter into a discussion with the city to make sure that what we do with the landscaping is appropriate to the building and the neighborhood.
All right, thank you, sir. So do we have a seconder?
I'm going to second it. I don't have an issue with the parking variances as well. I wasn't suggesting that the garages be used as garages because it sounds like maybe, well, they're not useful in any event given their state. I was initially a little concerned about taking over some storage space that was noticed on the floor plans to create new units, but it sounds like I didn't see anything that suggested it was being used in a useful way in any event. So I agree with Mr. Clay. Additional units in this neighborhood is an attractive thing, so I'm prepared to second the motion.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval. All against? Are you against, Jim? Or for?
No, I'm not against. I'm not against. I'm only speaking out for the tenants that bicycle storage seems to be their main concern. And now I trust that you will do something about that.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, Yim, did you vote for it to approve?
Yes, I voted for it.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. 861, 863 St. Clair Avenue West. Purpose of this application is to construct a 10-story mixed-use building containing 3 levels of below-grade parking, ground floor retail space, 76 residential unit, and rooftop amenity space. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from transportation, and a staff report from planning, a letter from the counselor, and support from 863, 115 Dynavor, 863, 863, 863, and 17A St. Clair Avenue West, and then 17A Robina, and 20 form letters in support by occupants of St. Clair Avenue West, Clover Lawn Avenue, Via Italia, and Northcliffe Boulevard. Mr. Tinker?
Yes, good afternoon, or maybe good evening, I suppose. I'm not quite sure when it changes, but yeah, Mr. Tinker here from Bouse Fields. I'm here on behalf of the owner of 861 to 863 St. Clair Avenue.
Yes, could you give us a very brief submission?
Yes, it is a file with quite a lot of history, as I'm sure you've looked through the materials, and I'll try my best to capture some of the main points. As has been mentioned, this is an application for a mid-rise mixed-use project on the south side of St. Clair Avenue West. It is an application that has been thoroughly reviewed by city planning staff as part of a site plan application. The site plan application has been under review for approximately 18 months. It was also an application that was presented before the design review panel. It was well received by the design review panel because of its unique sort of singular contemporary design, which they appreciated. And because of the scale of the project, the local ward councillor, leading into the previous committee hearing before the Etobicoke panel, there was a community open house at a local school, so there was a significant amount of public consultation leading into the committee hearing back in May of last year. During the review of the site plan application, some additional variances were identified by the zoning examiner, which is why the application had to come back to committee for the second time. And during that time, because of the ward boundary changes, it meant that we were coming to the Toronto East York committee and not back to the Etobicoke committee. I guess another point to help clear up any confusion is that with the original approval by the Etobicoke committee, there was a number of conditions tied to that. One of the key ones was the requirement for this building and future owners of this building to maintain and repair an easement that runs immediately to the south of the site. So thank you for bringing up the site plan. There is a 3.05 meter wide easement that is owned by the property owner at 180 Winona Drive, which is to the south. 180 Winona is a house that's set back significantly from Winona Drive, and it's actually kind of behind the two other residential properties to the south at 184 and 186. And that easement, that driveway, this private driveway, provides an easement both for 180 for its vehicular access, 186 for its vehicular access, and the properties that form this site at 186, 183 St. Clair also have a right of access over it. And originally the plan was to use that right of way to provide for some of the vehicular access and turning movements of trucks, loading trucks and garbage trucks for this development. And as we were leading into our hearing with you that was scheduled for February, you will have noted that on the file there was a letter of objection from 180 Winona Drive, who objected to the use of that right-of-way for the garbage and loading operations. And so it became clear to us and to planning staff and to the local ward councillor and to city legal that we probably were not going to be able to fulfill those original conditions that were set by the Etobicoke Committee of Adjustment. And what we did was we redesigned the driveway in such a way so that we could make all of our turning movements on our own property and did not need to use the easement for that purpose. It was City Legal's opinion that in order to remove that original condition, you would not have the ability to remove that original condition, and that the best way to deal with it was to bring back all of those original variances that the Etobicoke Committee had approved subject to that condition, and ask you respectfully to reconsider those variances and reapprove them without that condition requiring the maintenance and repair over those lands. You'll notice that the planning department is still requesting a condition that that this property not remove its rights of access over that easement, and that's because the 3.05 meter width of that laneway is being used as part of our justification for our rear yard setback of this building. You'll see that we do have
Mr. Tinker, your time is up. If you could just wrap up, please.
Yeah, so hopefully that clears up any questions that you may have had. All I can say is that, in my opinion, as a registered land use planner, the variances before you, both individually and cumulatively, meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act and for a minor variance application. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Would you confirm that you're in agreement with the planning conditions?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, we go into committee. Any comments, or do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a comment. It's a very good presentation, and I understand a lot. I think it's an improvement, and it's only a technical sense that we have to approve those variances. So I have no problem approving this.
Are you making a motion, Yim?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Okay. Seconder?
Is that going to be subject to the planning conditions?
Yes.
I'll second it if it's subject to the planning conditions.
All right.
What are the planning?
They're in the supplementary package.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. Okay.
All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, please, could I make one more comment? There was a condition from the local ward councillor for a cash contribution of section 45(9). And I just want to make sure that the record shows that not only would it be subject to the planning conditions, but it would also be subject to the condition from the local ward councillor. That's a really important thing to capture in this application. If the record could show that, please.
All right, Mr. Tinker, could you repeat that about a cash contribution?
Yeah, with the original approval by the Etobicoke Committee of Adjustment, there was a condition that a cash contribution of $235,000 be secured for the satisfaction of the chief planner, with some additional language there. And I note that the local ward councillor sent a letter in connection with this revised proposal, also requesting that the same condition be tied to this approval. I know that it wasn't in the planning conditions, but it should be captured.
I have no problem with it, but I just asked staff. Staff, is that something we would normally do, a section 38 condition?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, if it was something that was in the previous decision, then there are conditions where there have been cash contributions. I actually missed it. I didn't see anything mentioned about it, but if the applicant is asking you to include
It's
it.
only in the councillor's letter.
Yeah, I don't see, there's no problem with adding it if everybody's in agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, I was fine with it. I just didn't know what the technicalities of doing that would be.
No. Okay. All right, are we?
Just in terms of the previous decision, we don't need any of those other conditions. Is that correct? Apart from the one that Mr. Tinker just raised?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, that's correct. Through you, Chair, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is that it? That's, we adjourned at 7:19 p.m.
Did we bring a motion on that?
No, you don't have to make a motion. Through you, we don't need to make motions on, it's just the hearing is adjourned at 7:18.
Good job, folks. Good job, Don.
Thank you.
Guess you're not going to get that. Oh, forget it. It's been a long day.
Anita, just a little, I don't know if Jacob's on the line, but good job, Jacob. I mean, that really is helpful when you bring that stuff forward and put it on the screen so quickly.
Yeah.
It helps us because I end up trying to fumble through my computer finding it. and bang, it's right on the screen. So great job.
I know.
You'll never find it.
I appreciate that.
Not as fast as he does.
It would be nice if all the agents, and if maybe people are still listening, are we off of YouTube? To have their presentation packages well marked so that when they